Sudama Brahmana or Sudama Vipra visits Lord Krishna in Dvaraka. When you begin reading Srimad Bhagavatam, it's kind of addictive. Have you noticed? If you don't read it, it's like it just sits there and yes, it's auspicious. When you start reading it, and very nice. Sudama. Sudama was there's different Sudamas. There's a cowherd boy Sudama. Who's the cowherd boy Sudama? Who wants to raise their hand and say something about the cowherd boy Sudama? Who would wish they could raise their hand, because if they knew something, they would raise their hand. Krishna. You don't know? Mukunda. I'm going to make you do your homework and look it up.
One of the cowherd boys
Yes.
descended during Chaitanya Leela also some pastime related to Nityananda Prabhu.
That's pretty
12
good.
primary cowherd boys.
He's a primary cowherd boy, but that's a little vague that he's connected to Lord Nityananda. Yes. I heard what he said. But you can research it and then you report it to me, because I don't recall that. But tomorrow morning, we're going to have a morning class, and I'm going to ask for some research volunteers. Sudama is one of Krishna's cowherd boyfriends. What do we know about Sudama? So there's Sudama the florist. You know about Sudama the florist, right? That wasn't Vrindavan. Where was that? In Mathura, right? Sudama the florist in Mathura, right? Mukunda, you're not registering. No, that's the washerman. After the washerman, he approached a weaver, and after the weaver, he approached the florist, Sudama. He was ready. But there's a Sudama cowherd boy. Okay, so Sudamapuri, this is a photograph of a structure that was built in the early 1900s, indicating the birthplace and the residence of Sudama. And Sudama's wife, often it just says his wife, but you have to look carefully. It's Sushila. And it's in the town of Porbandar. Those of you who are from Gujarat, what do you know about Porbandar? I think somebody should put their hand up, because otherwise it's chaos. Mahatma Gandhi's birthplace, Porbandar. Those of you from Gujarat, you know Porbandar. But also the birthplace of, and the place of life of Sudama and his good wife, Sushila. It's along the sea, just like Dvaraka is along the sea. And he, Sudama went to the same school that Krishna went. The school that Krishna went wasn't right around the corner, wasn't around the corner from Mathura, and it wasn't around the corner from Porbandar. But the celebrated teacher was Sandipani Muni. That's in today's Ujjain. Then it was known as Avanti or Avantipur. There's an Avanti river. Along the bank of the Avanti river is Avanti, now known as Ujjain. And here's a nice description. Did you know, according to Gopal Champu, Krishna selected who his teacher would be. And in Gopal Champu, he gives the reasoning behind selecting Sandipani Muni as his teacher. Besides, he was a good teacher. Here's what it says. Madhukanta is speaking. Who's Madhukanta? Madhukanta is one of two disciples of Narada Muni. Snigdhakanta is the other. And Madhukanta. They're narrating for the benefit of Nanda Maharaj and all of the associates of Vrindavan, Krishna's pastimes. Part 1 is in Vrindavan, part 2 is out of Vrindavan. It's just a sequel to the 10th canto Bhagavatam, but it's narrated by these two, and Jiva Goswami is the author. So Madhukanta is narrating after Krishna had reached Mathura and finished Kamsa and received his Upanayana from Gargamuni. It was that time, he's 11 years old now, it's time to go to school. According to the ancient sages, one should study by going to the Gurukula. Though Vyasa and other of great stature would be suitable as gurus and are well known, they will think that we too, this is Krishna's contemplation, he and Balaram, already have all knowledge. Therefore, they will show some hesitation to be our guru. They are the highest Vaishnavas and have realized the Vaishnava philosophy. We should study, and that will be attractive. Though we have knowledge by our natures, it is best that we go to the Gurukul. If we break the rules, it will not be auspicious for the world. So now they're selecting a person who is fixed in Brahman and worships Shiva, because a Vaishnava would know that he's Vishnu and they wouldn't want to be his teacher, would be the best guru. The great soul, Sandipani, of a dynasty from Kashi, is a worshipper of Shiva. He previously went to Prabhas and now lives in Avanti, a place emanating happiness and near to a Shiva temple. So here's a detail. It's nice, sometimes details are nice. After Krishna went to school, he learned everything in 64 days. There's 64 Vedangas, and he learned one Vedanga per day from Sandipani Muni, who knew all of them. And then it was time for graduation. When it was time for graduation, he and Balaram came with folded palms. We're ready to go home now. We'd like to offer some Guru Dakshin. What would you like? And Sandipani Muni by this time understood they're not ordinary. And so he said, my son recently went to Prabhas and he disappeared. So could you find him and bring him back? So Krishna and Balaram went to the shore of Prabhas. According to the Lita Madhava, that son of Sandipani Muni was his dear friend Madhumangal from Vrindavan. Really? According to Lalita Madhava. That means when Krishna left to go to Mathura, Madhumangal went back home. doesn't say what happened with Purnamasi, his grandmother, but Madhumangal went back to Avanti. And after some time, he went to the shore of the ocean and he disappeared. So this painting is a painting of Krishna calling Samudra or Varuna or the ocean personified to inform him where is the son of Sandipani Muni. There it doesn't say, and by the way, his name is Madhumangal. It just asks for where is his son, and there's the rest of the description. He was taken by a demon named Panchajanya who lives in the ocean, and he accepts the body of a shell, and he swallowed him. So Krishna told Balaram, you wait here by the shore, I'm going to go find Panchajanya. He found Panchajanya, punched him out. There was no Madhumangal inside his belly. So he used the Panchajanya later as his conch shell in battle in Kurukshetra, blew upon his conch shell, Panchajanya, same kind Panchajanya. And then he went to the abode of Yamaraj, and there was Madhumangal. So he brought Madhumangal back from the abode of Yamaraj. And he was asked, any other service? That you've completely satisfied me. All blessings to you. So he and Balaram went back to Mathura. Sometimes it takes a while to sort all this out, but here's a little chart that shows there's Sandipani Muni down in this middle center. His mother was Purnamasi. And who's Purnamasi? Purnamasi is Yogamaya personified. And Sandipani Muni had a son and a daughter, Madhumangal, Krishna's dear coward boyfriend, and Brahmana, and Nandimukhi, who is also a Brahmani. She plays a very important role in Krishna's pastimes in Braja. We don't hear anything about her, I'm aware at least, of anything spoken about her or written about her after Krishna leaves Vrindavan. But she's a very important person during Krishna's pastimes. Now, here's a puzzle, and I don't have the answer to this one. And I've asked some learned devotees, and they haven't given me the answer yet. But how is it that Sandipani Muni is a worshipper of Lord Shiva when his son and daughter are exalted associates of Krishna and the gopis, and his mother is Yogamaya personified? How is he a worshipper of Lord Shiva? So you can go ahead and ask me that question. The answer is I don't know. But I just know what it says in Gopal Champu. He was a knower of Brahman, and he was a worshipper of Shiva. Now there are texts that indicate that as soon as Krishna arrived, by his understanding of Brahman, he understood this isn't just a young Kshatriya. Brothers, they're exalted personalities, and in the course of time he came to understand they're the personality of Godhead. So that's the descriptions that are found. So now, in the beginning part of chapter 80, Sukadeva Goswami is feeling very enlivened, ecstatically enlivened to describe Krishna's exchanges with Sudama in their adult life. Lord Krishna had a Brahmana friend named Sudama, who was most learned in Vedic knowledge and detached from all sense enjoyment. Furthermore, his mind was peaceful and his senses were subdued. Now, when you see something in big white letters, that means it's text from the Bhagavatam. You see little small yellow letters, that means it's commentary from different of our acharyas. This isn't the A to Z story, it's just highlights. Shukadeva was completely absorbed in the Lord, who showed his greatness to Sudama by giving him mercy. So the inspiration this particular spiritual inspiration, the
而至尊主呢，给
enlivenment
Sudama
for Shukadev
他
is
的仁慈，
the taste that he's experiencing, appreciating the affection that Krishna had for Sudama, and the mercy that he showed to Sudama, and the way that he
赞
showed
美
his mercy
Krishna
to Sudama.
向 Sudama
Part of the reason for
给予
selecting
这
this,
种
it
仁
has
慈的
something
方
to
式。
do with guru and disciple relationship for, the weekend, the occasion.
其
So
中也讲到了
Shukadev
和
Goswami
这
goes
样的一
on.
种关系。
Sudama,
Sukadeva
this
Goswami
is
就继续讲
commentary. Sudama was not only a
这里
Brahmana,
是评述 Sudama 他不光
but
是个婆
the
罗门，
best
而且呢
knower of the
是
meaning of the Vedas.
知悉伟大的
Since he was
伟大经
fixed
含
in
义的
bhakti
最
to
佳
the
的知
Lord,
悉
he was
者。
detached from sense
因
enjoyment.
为他
Why?
完全的稳处在对
He
主的
was
巴克
most
中，
peaceful
他弃绝所有
because
感
his
官
mind
享
was
乐。
devoid of
为什么呢？
lust and
因为他非
lamentation.
常的平
Why?
和，
His senses were
因
controlled.
为他的心意免于了所有的这种
So
色
he's an
欲和
elevated
悲哀。为什么？
Brahmana
因为
in
他的感
knowledge.
官
He's
得
an
以控制。
elevated
所以
bhakta,
Sudama 他是一个
Vaishnava,
一个
Sudama,
崇高的一个 bhakta， 一个崇
freed
高的
from
婆罗
material
门。
attraction.
而且呢，他没有
Remember
这
from
种
the
物质的
story
吸引。
in the morning session where the kings, they had material attraction, but they became freed from
像
material
我们昨
attraction.
天
But
讲的这个
Sudama
呢，
was already
这些
freed from
国王
material
是混合
attraction.
奉献者，
He was already
但
there.
是 Sudama 已经摆脱了这些物质的吸引。
Living as a householder, he maintained himself with whatever
那作为一
came
个
of
居
its
士来
own
生活，
accord, meaning he didn't even go and request alms. He just sat at home with his wife. And if anything came, that was their
那么
edibles.
他
And
就
if
回
nothing
家，
came, they wouldn't eat.
不管家里什么自动到来呢，
It's an
他们
unusual
就
way
有
to
什么就
live.
吃什么。所以这就是他们
The wife of
这
that
种
poorly
非常
dressed
不寻常的
Brahmana
这种生活
suffered
方式。
along with
那
him
他的
and
妻
was
子
emaciated
和
from
他一道
hunger.
呢，穿得非常的
But
破
it
败。
also said his wife was dressed
那
in
么也说到
badly
他的
colored,
妻
worn
子
out, soiled cloth.
穿的是
Her qualities of
褪了色的这
renunciation
种穿的
were
很破
just
的这样
like
的一个破
his.
布，
They dressed alike,
而她的品质呢，
they
她
ate
妻子的
alike,
品质跟她的丈夫是一
they
样的。
lived in poverty alike, and
他们
her
当
quality
时
was
居
like
住
his
在这样的一
quality.
种贫穷的状态，
Now this
而
is
他
when you
们
see
的
this
心
image on
也
the
是
right
相近
side,
的。
that means Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur's commentary.
那么你会看到这个是
Sudama's wife,
塔库的评述。
again,
Sudama 的妻子，
nowhere in this whole chapter does it mention her name, but
那么
she
在
had a
这
name.
个这章中没提到她的名字，但是她的确有个名字。
But Sudama's wife exhibited the same qualities,
展
tata,
现出了同
vidha,
样的这样的
such as tolerating
品质
hunger,
，tata vida
shut, kshama.
这些品质
She was even more
这些
tolerant than Sudama
容忍
because
饥饿，
whatever she received as food, she served to him,
她甚至比苏达玛还要
remaining
更加的
hungry
能够容忍
herself.
这些，因为呢，不论她接受
No,
到
he
什么
didn't
食
have
物，
a
她都首
job.
先让她的丈夫吃。
He was a Brahmana, he was learned
她没
Brahmana,
有职业，
but he didn't do
因为
any
她
one of the
是
six
婆罗
things
门，
that Prabhupada says Brahmanas do. He just was not interested.
但是她并没有
Since
做
her
到
husband was
妈妈
unable
讲
to
的婆罗
supply
门做的这项
necessities,
事
her
情，
face was faded. That's
她对这
commentary.
个事情并不感兴趣。
So back to the Bhagavatam verse. The chaste wife of the poverty-stricken Brahmana once approached him. Her
加
face
瓦
dried
这
up
里就说到，
because
这
of her
这个
distress. Trembling with
纯
fear,
洁的这个妻子
she spoke as
就接近了
follows.
丈
Now,
夫，
why was she
她的
afraid?
脸色因为
This
痛苦而
commentary
变
says
得
she was
非常的
afraid
干枯，
because
她非
she
常
thought
恐
it
惧，
wasn't
然
proper
后
to
说了如
ask
下
the
的话。
Lord,
那评论
Krishna,
说她恐惧是因
for
为
anything except
她知
devotion.
道去问
It's-
Krishna 要
wasn't
从
proper.
爱
It
之
doesn't
外
say
的
it's
东西是
like
不合
it's
适
a
的。
no-no, but she's going to ask for it. She's going to really ask for it.
但是呢，
She's going to like
她还是
handpeck him
向
to
她的丈夫
pieces
提
to
到这个事情。
go ask Krishna for something. Sridhar Swami
你
comments,
还是问 Krishna 要些
the
东西。
chaste lady became
那 Sridhar
especially unhappy
Swami
because
就
she
给
could
需
not
要
obtain food
说
to
这
feed her
个
husband
纯洁的妻子
and thus was trembling.
变得非常的不开心，因为他们没有办法，
So
她没
she
办
was
法获得足
fearful
够
and
的
she
食
was
物来喂养
trembling.
她的丈夫，所以呢，她为此
And
就是
Sudama's wife
颤抖
said,
着。苏达玛
now
的
they're
妻子说的，
Vaishnavas, they're Brahmanas
那
and
他们都是
Vaishnavas.
Vaishnava，
Oh,
都是
Brahmana,
婆罗门和
isn't
Vaishnava。
it true that the
Oh,
husband of the
Brahmana.
goddess of fortune is the personal
难道这
friend
不是
of your
真的吗？
exalted self?
幸运女神的丈夫就是你本人
So not only she
杰出的本
knows
人的这个
that
亲密的
Krishna
朋友。
is the husband of the goddess of fortune, he's
那么
Madhava,
这里
the goddess of fortune
Krishna
is
在这里称
Lakshmi.
为 Madhava，
But
就
she
是
knows that
Lakshmi
her
的
husband,
丈夫。
O Brahmana, is
那
his
她知道
friend,
她的
her husband's
丈夫呢是 Krishna 的
exalted
密友，
friend.
而且是非常崇高的这样的一
Now,
个
this
朋友。
is a painting that's from a comic book, and it shows some children.
那这是
I
从
don't
一
know
个
of
卡
anything
通
that
的
says they're
卡
children
通
other
画册里
than
面
this
展出来
artist
的。
thinks that they had children.
但是我其实不知道
Because a natural
苏达
question
玛
is,
他
wait a
们到
minute,
底有没有
if
孩
he's,
子？
there's one thing his wife, but what about his children, not feeding his children? What kind of householder is he? But he
如果他
married
们不喂养
because
他
it
们
comes
孩子
up
的话，那
later.
他们过的什么样的居
If
士
he,
生
if
活
he's
呢？
not interested in anything material, why did he get married? He just, because he's a
如
Brahmana,
果
he could have
他
just
们对于
remained
物质生活不感兴趣，为
brahmachari
什
or
么要结
become a
婚呢？
sannyasi.
那他可以成为一个
So
brahmachari， 然后成为
detached, so
sannyasi 就可
detached,
以了。
but
他们
his
这样
wife
的
was
太
of
重的
similar
起见，
nature, so it
而
was
且他
very
妻子也是如此
compatible.
的，
Wasn't for sense
所以他们
gratification, it was for
所以他们其
companionship.
实品性相近。
And
那么他们
anyway, there's no
只是
children
互相的
that
陪
I'm
伴
aware
而
of,
已，并不是为了
except
感
the
官享乐。
creative artist here.
其
That
实他们没有孩
greatest
子，
of
那在
Yadus,
那只
Yadavas,
是艺术家的创
the
造。
Supreme Lord Krishna,
我们就说到这
so
个
they know who he
亚当的
is,
最伟大的
both of
境
them,
界，至尊人格守神 Krishna
is
对
compassionate to
婆罗门
Brahmanas
非常
and
的
very willing to grant
非常的同情和怜悯，
them
他
his
非常的愿
shelter.
意去给予这些婆罗门
So
庇护。
he's the Lord of all visible wealth.
所以
That's his
平安
wife.
说，那
And
至
he
尊主
says,
是所
why
有
would he
可
be
见
friends
富
with
裕的主
me?
人。
Such a low
而苏达玛
person.
就说，
He's the
为什么他
benefactor
会
of
以我
Brahmanas.
为友呢？我是这么低贱的一个人。
Why would he be
妻子说，
kind to me?
那 Krishna 他是婆罗门的祝福
He's
者，
affectionate to
苏达玛
those
就
who have
说，为什么
surrendered.
他会对我仁慈呢？那他妻子说，因为他对那些臣服于
Sharanya.
他的人
So
非
there's
常
this
的
back and forth.
非
There's
常
like
的
several slides.
怜爱，
Commentators are
就是
having
Sharanya。
fun. The wife would propose and he would object, and she would propose
所以评
something
论
else
这
and
个
he would object, and
啊
it goes on
讲的
for
非常有意思，
several
在讲他的这
slides.
个丈夫和妻子之间一来一去的这样的这种对
He was
话。
reluctant, Sudama, but I don't have the qualities of
那
such a
Sudama
Brahmana.
非
The
常的
wife
犹豫。
says,
那苏达玛就说，
Krishna
我
gives
没有婆
shelter,
罗门的品质。那他妻子就
Sharanyas,
说
to anyone who
，Krishna
surrenders to
给
him.
予那些任何向他臣服的这些臣服者
Sudama, since I have no devotion,
苏达
I
玛就
do
说
not
呢，
even have the
因为我
quality
没
of
有奉爱
surrender.
我甚至连臣服这一品质都没有。
Wife, Krishna is
他妻子说
omniscient
道，那
Bhagavan.
Krishna
Therefore, he
是
will
无所
take
不知的
note of your
巴格万，因
unhappiness
此
and be
他会注意
merciful
到
to
你
you.
的这种不快乐的状态，而且会对你施予仁慈。
Vishwanath, similar.
为什么
Krishna is equally disposed to all the
说
countless
继续说道，
unhappy conditioned
苏达玛
souls
说，
suffering
那
the fruits of their
Krishna
own karma. So why should he give
他
wealth to
对所有的
me?
众生都保持
Wife,
中立的态度，让
that's
他
an
们
answer for
尝
everything.
自己的karma的苦果。为什么他要把财富给我呢？那他的妻子又在继
She's
续
good
去
too.
说，
Krishna is the master of the devotees,
Krishna
sattvatas.
是奉
He
献
may
者，
not give,
这个
but the
sattva 的
devotees
主
who
人，
serve him
他
by
也许不给，
fanning and other
但是
actions will mercifully
他
give
的
you
奉献
some
者们，
charity.
那些
Since Krishna
服务
maintains
他
the
的、对他善
yadus,
良的这些奉献者，可
sattvata
能会对你
rishabha,
施予仁慈，给你一
what
些
burden
布
or
施，
fault is it for
因为
him to
Krishna
maintain you?
维系着整个亚度王朝。那么他维系你，
She
对
goes
他来
on,
说
Oh,
有
fortunate
有
one,
什么错
please
呢？
approach him, the real shelter of all saints. He will certainly give
哦，幸运的
abundant
人要
wealth
去接
to
近他
such a
吧，
suffering
他
householder as
是
you.
一
So
切圣者的
what's
真
her
正的庇护
concern?
所，他
Her
肯定会
concern
给
is
你大
her
量的财
husband is
富
so
的，对于
skinny.
像你这
Later
样
it
一个
says
受
that not
雇
only
的
his
这样的一个居
bones
士。
were showing, but the
那
veins
么
in
他
his
妻子就
body
说，
were
是因为他的
bulging
丈
out of
夫
his
完全
skin
瘦的这个
because he
皮
was
包
so
骨头，
skinny.
连这个就
When
青筋都
Rukmini
暴
is
露在
fanning
外，
him, he's
非
sitting
常的
there in
瘦。
rags
那么
with
当
his
Rukmini 跟他
veins
去商量
bulging
的
out
时
of
候，
his skin.
看到
So
他的身上
she
青
couldn't
筋暴
bear to
露，
see that.
那他甚至都不
She
忍
knew
心
what
去
hunger
看到这
was,
一
and
幕。
she was okay because she was happy, okay, being hungry. But she wasn't
他
okay
他
her
知道
husband
他的这个
being
丈
so
夫
so
很
emaciated
饥
like
饿，
that.
但是他无法去容
It
忍他
wasn't
的丈夫
selfish, in
看
other
上
words. It was
去
the loving
这么的
gesture of a
瘦弱不
wife.
堪。
And she's pretty
所以这
persuasive.
是，所以这是在
Since it is
妻
not
子和丈夫
proper
之间这种爱的交流。那妻子
to
就，
go to the Lord and ask for
那
something
么
other
她的
than
丈夫就说
devotional
道，
service,
既
I'm
然
afraid and
这是
ashamed.
不合适
She's
的，
got an
所以
answer.
我感到
He is the
恐
shelter of
惧，
saintly
而且觉
persons
得很
like
羞
you.
涩。
Since he is the only
而且
shelter,
妻子
it
说，
is not
因为
proper
所有
not to
像你这
surrender
样
to
圣
him
人的这个
because you're
托庇
fearful.
所，因为他是你唯一的庇护所，所以
He may give shelter to a saintly, but
你
I'm
应
not
当因为
saintly.
恐惧而不去托
But
庇
you
他。
have great fortune.
那他说道，
Otherwise, how
苏
could
达
you
玛
make
就说，
friends with him. You
可是呢，
are a
他给
proper
所有的
object
圣
of
者
his
庇护，但是我不圣
charity.
洁。那他的妻子说道：“你拥有极
She
大的
goes
信誉，
on. Lord
否则的
Krishna
话，你
is
怎么能成为 Krishna 的
now
朋
the
友呢？
ruler of the Bhojas, Vrishnis, Andakas,
你是他
and
给
is
予布施的
staying
合
at
适的对
Dvaraka.
象。
So Dvaraka
那现
from
在
their
主
place at
Krishna 是
Porbandar
博
is
迦
not
王朝的
far.
统治者 Vishnu
Since
和
he gives
Andaka，
even his own self to anyone who simply
那他
remembers
就
his
待
lotus
在这个
feet,
Dvaraka，
what doubt is there that he, the
因为他
spiritual
给所有
master
那
of the
些铭记
universe,
他莲花
they're
座的女
Vaishnavas,
仆，
they understand his position.
他
They're
是
not
宇
in
宙的
Vrindavan,
这
they're
个灵性
outside
导师，
Vrindavan, and they understand
将
he's the
会
Supreme Lord.
去给他的这个真诚的崇拜
He will
者
bestow
富
upon
裕
his
和繁荣。
sincere worshipper prosperity and material enjoyment, which are
那么至
not
尊主给
even
予他的
very
破
desirable.
壁他的
Why would he not
奉
do
献者
that?
的一切，
To
那更何
satisfy
况
his
这些
friends,
不值得要
sometimes
的
he
这
goes
些
to
东西，这
Indraprastha,
些财富呢，他一定会给
sometimes he
你。
goes to Vrindavan, and sometimes to other places
然
to
后苏
fight
达玛说
demons.
，Krishna
How
有
will
的
I
时候
meet
并不
him?
待在这
Since I
个一个地
cannot
方，
go so
他有的
far
时候为了
away,
满足他的他的朋友会
he's
去
got
到
an
一个
answer.
Pasta Vrindavan。那么我
Go
去
to
见他，
Dvaraka, which is not far from here.
那
He has
他也
stopped fighting and he is
我
staying
没
there
有办法去
only
那么远，我怎么去见他呢？
in order to
他的
enjoy
妻
with
子
the
说，直接去
others.
Dvaraka，因为 Krishna 现在停止
But
作战了，
he'll not
他就
give
待
much
在
to
那
such an
去与亚度
unqualified
王朝的人
person
在一
as
起享
me.
受。那
He
苏达
gives
玛
to
又
one
说
who remembers his
，Krishna
lotus
不会给
feet,
我
and
像
her
这样的
husband
不
is
够资格的人
always remembering
太多东
Krishna.
西的。但他的妻子又
Oh,
说
dear one,
，Krishna
it
给
is
那
said
些
that the
铭记
wealth
他
of a
莲花座
learned
的人一
Brahmana
切。
is obtained by accepting alms, but he's
我
not even
这个
going
苏
out
达
and
玛又
accepting
说，
alms.
哦，亲爱的人啊，
Everyone's destiny is already
据
written.
说这个博学的婆罗
What will
门
be, will be. Oh, beautiful
获得
one.
的这
What is
个
the use of running
财富
here
都应
and
当是
there,
通过
trying
接
to
受这个
alter that which is already destined?
极
My
好的这些
greedy
化缘得
request
来的
will
一切。
chase away his love for me.
那
I
每
will
一个人的
simply
命运都已
meditate
经注
upon
定
Lord
了，
Krishna.
不论怎样。那么这个苏达玛坚
His
持
wife
说，我
wins.
只是宁愿去冥想 Krishna。
He considers she's so insistent, repeatedly imploring him, and he
那
thinks
么
to
他的
see
妻子继续说
Krishna
呢，
will
他
actually
的
be
妻子
the
用
greatest achievement of my life.
各种各样
So
的
he
方式
decided to go.
不
I mean,
停
it's
的
not
去说
just
服他。
yielding to the
那么
nagging
苏
wife,
达玛最后
it's he
就
wanted to
同
see
意了。
Krishna. So
那实际
then
上苏达
both
玛并
things
不
could
是
be
屈从于他的
accomplished.
妻子的
His
唠叨，
wife's
而是
anxiety
因为他真的
and
想
seeing
见
Krishna
Krishna。
can be fulfilled. Go to Dvaraka. But then he said, if there's anything in the
接
house
着他就说
I
道，
can bring
如果
as a
家里还有
gift,
什么的话，
if
苏达玛就说道，
because they're
如果家里
destitute,
还有什么的
there's
话，
nothing in the
那
house.
能不能给我让我去
So what
带
did
给
she do?
Krishna
She
作为
went to
礼
the
物呢？
neighbors.
那么他妻
The
子怎么做呢？
reasoning
他
is
妻子
this is
去
just a
去
Vedic
找邻居，
culture or a,
因为
an
呢，这
etiquette
个背
item.
后的原因
One
是因
should
为这
not
是一
go
个伟大的
empty-handed to
文
the
化，
king,
一个人不应
the
当两手
Lord,
空空的去见国
or
王，
Guru.
去
It's
见
like,
主
you
人，
know,
或
many
者说去
people, when
见
they come to the
主。
temple,
那
they
么很
place
多人来
something on
庙
the
里的时候
altar
呢，
as a gift for the
他们
deity,
在神
and
坛
they
上
put
放些
something
东
in the
西
handy
给
box
神
and
像。
pay some, offer some prayers and go. Subal, you probably
然后
remember
呢，去献上祷
in
文，
Henry Street, there
然
was
后
one
去
fellow that would
离
come
开。
every morning, right in the middle of Bhagavatam
那
class.
书报，你还记得
Remember that?
有一个人
Huh?
每天来庙里吗？有一个人每天都来这个庙
Skimmerhorn
里。
Street. Skimmerhorn Street. What did I say? I said Henry Street. Okay, sorry. Skimmerhorn Street. Skimmerhorn Street. Radha Govinda Mandir. So he was one of
但是
these
在 Radha
fellows.
Govinda
He was
Mandir 这
a
个地方，
classic Kanishta. It's like
那么
the
这个人呢，
Bhagavatam class
他
wasn't
是
even going on.
完全的这个 Kanishta 初级的奉
He
献
had
者。
these plastic bags, and he
他有
would
个塑料
come
袋，
right in the middle, in between the speaker and the audience, rattling his plastic bags,
他每次都在课
placing the
中
stuff
就
from the
拎着他
plastic
的
because he
袋
wanted
子
to save the
就过
plastic
来，
bags, placing the stuff on the front of the
就把
altar,
袋子里的东西掏出
and
来，然后就放在
rattling the
神坛上，
plastic bags, and standing in front and doing a
然后把
pirouette 3 times in front of the altar,
然后
and
然
then
后
go
塑料
to
袋
the
就收起来，然后就
Charanamrita
在神
table
像
and
面
make
前
clatter the
顶拜，然后去
every
每天早
morning,
上就
like
是这
we
样，
weren't even
然后
there,
然后去喝这个长人 Tamrita，
because he was doing the
然
ritual.
后就离开，
It
因为
wasn't
他
like,
每
it
天早上
wasn't
都来，
offensive.
就
It was
像
just
一个仪式
mindless.
仪规一样。
He said it was a Kanishta. That was what was
他
important,
是一
and
个初级奉
we
献
weren't
者，
even there. Finally, somebody,
但是
stepped outside with him
我
when
想
he
说的
left
是，
and
我
said,
们有些人甚至
could
都
you
不到
do
这
it a
个
little
境界。
differently, and could you do it like this? And so he complied. side. But anyway, you don't go before the deity, the king, or guru empty-handed.
所以呢，
So you
也
take
就是说
something.
你不会两手空
That's
空的
one of
去
the
见至
commentaries
尊主或
because
者
it's
去
a
见国王，
social etiquette
这是理
position
论
and
中的
he's
一
a
部分，
Brahmana,
因
he
为这
knows
实际
social
上是一
etiquette.
个婆罗门的这样
One
的
of
一
our
个设置。
acharyas says he made this
我
request
们一个
because of his
acharya
natural
说到，
friendship. He doesn't want to go
苏
without
达玛
something
要
to
他
offer
妻
to his
子
dear
找
friend
点礼物，
Krishna.
是因为他
They're
对 Krishna 的
destitute.
这种天然的友谊。
Sudama's wife begged 4 handfuls of flat
苏
rice
达
from
玛的妻
neighboring
子就
Brahmanas,
讨来了
tied up the
4
rice
把这样的碎
in a
米，
torn piece of
一把
cloth
这个碎米
and gave it to her
包在一块
husband as
破
a
布里，
present
然后给了她的丈夫作为给 Krishna 的这样的
for
见
Lord
面礼。
Krishna. Now he is in Dvaraka, and 4
那 Krishna 在 Dvaraka，
palmfuls
而
of
4
flat
把碎
rice,
米，
but that's what they had.
所以很寒酸，但是这是他们所有的一切了。
What? You're mumbling something?
那么你刚刚在说什么呢，这位奉献者？
Okay. That's what the local Brahmani housewives were
那
able
么
to
他们
give
就
him,
是
give her.
这是
So
当地
that's
的
what
这
she
些
gave to
婆
her
罗门能
husband.
够
She
给到
bound it
他
up in
老婆
a
的这些
worn
东
out
西，
piece of cloth.
所以呢，他就
And
把
when
这
you
碎米
see paintings,
用
you'll see several of them. I
破布
point
绑了起
them
来。
out initially, but I'll stop after some time. He's always shown
那么你
carrying
会
a
看到
little
很多次这
bag,
幅图，
sometimes over his
你会看到
shoulders,
图中
sometimes
苏
like
达玛总
like
是背着一
this.
个小
But he's got
小
that
包
little
裹，
bag is the rice
就这小包裹里包的
that
就是
he's
这些碎
carrying
米，
as a gift for Krishna. All this was
他
done
带
out of
去把这
extreme
个给
poverty
当礼物给 Krishna
and
的。
not out of
所有
intention
这
to
一切都是
display
因为
their
他们出于极
destitute
度的贫困
situation to the
这么做
Lord.
的，而并不是说
Kind
是
of
为
like
了
a
向
ploy.
主去展示他们的
That
贫
wasn't
穷，
the mindset. It's just what they had.
这并不是他们处
Now,
心积虑这么做的，而这是他们所有的一切。
Prabhupada writes something that's very important, so I'm going to pause in the
帕帕写了
story
一些非常重要的
and I'll describe it and then I'll read it. The commentary says
我
there
会简
are
述
two
简
types
单
of
的讲一讲。
renunciation.
评
One
论者说有
is
2种弃绝，
where one is indifferent to wealth, and when
有
one
一种呢，
receives
他们对
wealth,
财
it's
富
not a
是
problem
漠
because
不
they're
关心的
indifferent
状
to
态。
it. An example is
还有
Prahlad
那
or
比如说像这
Ambarish
样的例子，就
Maharaj.
像 Prahlada
They
Maharaj 和
received wealth
Ambarish
and they were
Maharaj，
indifferent to it.
他们接受了财富，但是对此去
And then there's
是
another
漠然的
case,
状态。
that case like Jad
还有
Bharat.
另外一种
He
情
actually
况，就像 Jada
disliked
Bharat， 他完
strongly
全不喜欢
any material,
非常强烈的讨厌
comforts.
这些物质
And
东西，
Sudama
讨
was
厌
like
物质
that
的舒
too.
适。
He just didn't
苏达玛
like
也
it,
跟他一样，他
just
就是不
didn't
喜
like
欢
it.
这些物质的东西，他就是不喜欢。
So when he went, it wasn't because
所以当他
it was for only one reason,
去
his
见
wife
Krishna 的时候，
and
他其
seeing
实
Krishna, his
是因
dear
为
friend.
有2个理由，
Because
就
his
是
wife was
妻子的
anxiety
这样
that
的
she
劝
couldn't
说，
feed her husband
因为他
properly.
妻子很
That was her
很焦虑，因
anxiety.
为她不能
So
让她
to
的丈夫吃
mitigate
饱，
her anxiety
这是他
and to
妻
go
子
see his
的
friend
这样的
Krishna,
焦
he
虑，
went. But
所以为了
it
去
it
平
wasn't
息
to
他
get
妻子的这
something.
种焦虑，
It's
还有就是去见 Krishna，
important
他并不是
because
真的想去问
you
Krishna
know
要这种。
Chaturvidha Bhajante Mam Jana Surka Chanorjana, the 4 types of pious people that go to
那
Krishna
么有
for
4
something
种，
material.
并不
I
是说
want, I want, or I want, or I
他是那
want.
种4种
Different
想要
categories
有
of
财富
wants.
的人去找
And I'm at the
Krishna。
center and Krishna is the order supplier of what I want.
那些人
But
呢
that
是认为
wasn't
自己
him.
是中心，而 Krishna 是供
He
应商，
just didn't
但是
want.
Sudama 不是这种人，
And we're going to hear later.
Sudama 就根
I'll
本不
say
想
it
要
now,
这些物质
but
财
we'll
富。
read it later.
那么我们后面会讲
Krishna
到
is
一些，我们会读
contemplating.
到这一部
He
分。
doesn't want,
那 Krishna
so
就
I
在
won't give
想
him.
，Sudama 根本不想要
Because
这
if
些
I
东西，
gave him,
那么我不
then
会
he
给他
would
这
be
些东西。
disturbed. So I'll wait till
因
when
为
he
如果
gets
我要给
back
他的话，会打扰他的，会让他
to
很
his
搅扰
home.
的，
I won't
内
disturb
心
him
很不
or
安。
his
那么我不
reputation
会
as a
去
very
打扰
renowned
他的这样
person.
的，因为他就
Here's
是以
what
这样的一
Prabhupada
个
writes. These are
弃绝
his
的人而
words.
著名。
An important
所以
distinction
帕帕
must
是
be
这样写
made
的。
between 2 kinds of renounced
那么有
devotees.
2种这个
One
弃绝奉
kind
献者
is
之间有这样一个
inimical
重要
to
的区
sense
分。一
gratification,
种呢，他们很
Jad
厌
Bharat,
恶这个感官享乐，就像 Jada
and
Bharat。
the other is indifferent to it.
还有另外一种呢，则是
The
对这个
Supreme
财富
Lord
是
does
漠然
not
的状态。
force sense
至尊主
gratification
他
upon
不
the
会
devotee
强
who is
迫
extremely
给那
averse
些极
to
度
worldly
讨厌
enjoyments.
这些世俗享乐的人，
This is
强加给
seen
他们感官享乐。
among
那
the
么
great
在
renouncers as Jad
像
Bharata.
伟大的弃绝者
On
Jada
the other
Bharat 上
hand,
可
the
以看
Lord
到。
may
而另
give
外一方面呢，
limitless
主
wealth
可
and
能会
power
给
to a
到无限
devotee
的
who
这
is
种财
neither
富
repelled
和权利，
nor
给
attached
到那些
by buy material
既不
things.
既不厌离，也不依附
Yudhisthira
物
Maharaj is
质
another
财富
who's
的这些奉
sometimes
献者。
mentioned like that. his kingdom was so
那
opulent,
尤利提尔王也
and
是另外一个例
abundant
子，
in everything for all the citizens,
他在
etc.
他的帝国里面拥有一切，非常的富足。
Dasrath was like that also.
那么达舍尔他也是这
Up
样。
to this point in his life, Sudama Brahman was totally averse to
那么
sense
到了这个生命的
gratification.
这
But
个点的时候，苏达玛
now, out of
婆罗门呢，
compassion
他
for
完
his
全的
faithful wife,
完全的厌恶这个
and because
感
he
官享
hankered
乐。
to have
但是现
Krishna's
在出于对
audience,
他的
he
忠心的
went
妻子
to
的同
beg
情，
from the
而且也
Lord.
是因为他很渴望能够觐见
So here's
krishna，
Vishwanath's
所以他就
commentary.
决定向
Due to
天天
his
向krishna
natural
祈祷。
humility, Sudama was
苏达
initially
沙 Vishwanath
dissatisfied
Thakur 的评
with
论，
his
由于
wife's
他天生的
constant
这样的谦
requests.
卑，苏达
Finally,
玛
he pacified
非
his
常的
mind and decided to go by
不
thinking,
喜欢他的妻
I'll be
子这
very
样的不
fortunate
停的去要求
by
他，
seeing my Lord.
请求他。
Now,
那么最终他
he is a
决
Vaishnava.
定这个
He
平
understands
息了他的
Krishna
这
is
种
the
心，然后
worshipable
决定去
deity
了。
of his life. Now, why
因为
wouldn't
他
he
知
go?
道 Krishna 是他终身
Just
崇拜的
to
这
see
样的
Krishna. So
至尊主。
he's walking,
那么他想，我想去见
thinking,
Krishna，所以他就
I'm going to meet Krishna.
边
It's a
走
little
边
bit,
想，
it's not the same,
他
but
在
it's
路上就
similar
想
to
着，我将要
Vidura
见
in
到
his
Krishna。
travel from
这
Mathura
点
to
和
Vrindavan
这
to
个
meet Krishna.
和维杜
Now,
拉
the
前
difference
往
is
这个 Dvaraka 去
Sudama
见
met
Krishna
Krishna when
很
they
类
were
似，
little
但不同
boys,
之处在
but it
于，
was only for a
这个
short
苏达玛
while, a
和
few
Krishna
months.
在童年时期就
But that impression
就
was there.
聚
He
在一起
understood
了，
Krishna
只
as
不
the
过
Supreme
相聚的
Lord.
时间很
And he
短。
was meditating. Now
但
I'm
是
going
呢，
to
这个
meet
印象
him.
在他的心中，
So
他知道 Krishna 是
Krishna
他
is
的
very
崇拜至
kind.
尊主，
Krishna is very
所以
kind.
他想去见 Krishna， 他一路上就想着 Krishna
I'm
非常
going
的
to
仁
see
慈，
him
非常的
directly.
仁慈。我就像我现在计划
Taking
去
the
到他
flat
身边
rice,
对面去见到
the
他。
saintly
他
Brahmana
拿着碎
set
米，
off for
这个圣
Dvaraka,
洁的
all the
婆罗
while
门
wondering,
就出发
how will I
身
be
前
able
往
to have
德瓦卡，
Krishna's audience?
而在路
Because
上
there's
他就
guards.
想着，
The guards aren't going to
我
look
怎么
at
能够
me,
见到
this
Krishna 呢？
shabby guy. That
因
why
为
are they going to let
Krishna
me
有那
in?
么多的卫兵，像
He
我
was
这样的
always
看
seeing
我
the
这
Lord in
样
his
的人，
heart,
怎么会
but
让我进
now
去
it
呢？
would be
他
direct
总是在心中看到他的
sun
主，但现
darshanam,
在
which
他
is
将
very
要
rare.
面对面的见到主，上
So you see in
达
the painting on
而
the
这样
left,
面
there's
对面的
Sudama
境界
walking
非
with a
常的罕
walking
有。
stick,
所以你们在
and in
路
his
上看到
left
苏达玛
hand,
拿着一个棍
there's
子
that bag of
正在
rice.
走，而左手呢就抓着那把包着碎米的包裹。
Now here's this comic book painting that again shows two small children. They don't
这
have,
个是那个卡通的这个插
but
画，
off they go.
画
Off
的
he
他们
goes.
还带着俩孩子。
According to our acharyas, he crossed the ocean in a boat
根据
because to
阿查亚
get
是这
to
样说的，
Dvaraka,
他
there's
是坐船
from the
过去的，
mainland, there's the
因为
sea.
他从
The
大陆
Dvaraka is an island in the sea.
穿越海，
So sometimes
因
it
为
says
杜瓦尔
there
卡在
were
海中央，
causeways, there were like bridges and other ways. But here it says
那么有的时
specifically he
候会
went by
有些
boat.
这个
And the
有些
Brahmana
渡
is
船，
shown
有
here in
些
the
这个
boat,
桥梁，但是
gazing at the
他
city
是
of
坐
Dvaraka.
船
Look
过
at the
去。
opulence of that city of
那
Dvaraka
当时他在船上
because he's
就
come
看
from
着
this
这
little
个富丽
shanty
堂皇的杜瓦尔
in
卡，
Porbandar.
而他
Wonderful
总
with
是
many
从这个
golden
普邦的这个小
palaces,
地方来，
assembly halls, fortresses, and
看到这
crossroads.
些金碧辉煌的这些
The learned
王界的
Brahmana,
这些豪华的
joined
建
by
筑。
some local Brahmanas, passed
那
three
这个
guard stations
博学的婆罗
and
门，
went
这
through
个苏
three
达玛呢就伴
gateways.
随着当地的婆
And
罗
then
门，
he walked
就
by the
穿越了
homes
这个
of
三
Lord
重门，
Krishna's faithful
然后呢
devotees, the Andakas and
就
Vrishnis,
步行到
which ordinarily no one could do.
看到
So
这
how
个
did
主
he get
Krishna 的奉
by?
献者这
Because the
些安达
answer
卡和
given
维
by
什
our
的这个住
acharyas
所。
is the guards naturally respected Brahmanas
那么为什么门卫会放他
and
进去呢？
Vaishnavas
阿
because
查
they
亚是这样
themselves are
说的，
Vaishnavas. They had Vaishnava
因
achar.
为他
They had
是
proper
这
behavior towards
个
another Vaishnava.
婆
They
罗门和
recognized him as a
Vaishnava，
Vaishnava,
所
although
以
he
呢，这
was,
些门卫
you
呢，
know,
他们也是
dressed in
Vaishnava，
rags,
所以自然的对这
almost
些
literally, but you know,
Vaishnava
very poorly
非常的
dressed.
仁慈。
But he's
很
a,
显
he's
然
a
他当时穿的
Vaishnava
很破
Brahmin,
败，
so they let him in.
但是他是个 Vaishnava 婆罗门，所
He
以
then
门卫就让他进
entered
去。
one of the opulent palaces belonging
那
to
么
Lord
接着
Hari's
苏达玛
16,000
就来
queens,
到了
and when he
主哈
did
利的这
so,
个
he felt as if
16000
he
名皇后的宫
were
殿中的其中的
attaining
一
the
所，
bliss of liberation.
而他立刻就
Now,
感受
there's
到
Sudama
自己
shown
已
at the
经挣扎了
bottom
这种，
with his
已
walking
经挣
stick
扎
and
了
his
这种解
bag
脱
of
的这种苦
rice.
喜。
And there's
在途
Krishna
中
speaking,
是
looks like
背
with
着这个碎米
Uddhava
的
or
婆罗门，
something, excuse
苏
me,
达 Sudama，
his father Vasudeva
那么
and
图右边是
Devaki,
Krishna
something
和他
like
的
that.
父母
And
Vasudeva
there's
和 Devaki 在一起，
Sudama coming to visit.
而 Sudama 呢就从这边来了，
There's
前
a
往
Goshal down at the
准备
bottom
去
right.
拜见 Krishna。那
Krishna
最右下
stood,
角
it's
是
from
一个
Padma
牛郎
Purana, same narration. He stood there for a moment.
那么这是 Padma Purana 中摘取的
Sudama
论述。
stood for a moment in
Sudama 在那里
silence at the doorway
在这个
of
门口
Queen
静静
Rukmini's
地待了一会
palace.
儿。
Now,
在这
so
个
far in the
Rukmini 面
Bhagavatam,
前
it
的
hasn't
这个
said
门
which
口，
queen,
他
but it's understood from
静默地
Padma
待了一会
Purana.
儿。
He just happened to walk
那么
into
在博伽瓦坛中没有说
Rukmini's
到
palace.
是哪个皇后的宫殿，但是在
Rukmini
莲花
grabbed
生
his
书中会说
hand.
到这是 Rukmini 的皇宫。
He was stunned,
Rukmini 就抓住他的手，
standing in
在当
silence,
时
looking at this
Sudama
opulent.
当时就呆呆地站在
So
这个富
she
丽堂
grabs
皇
him
的
by
宫
the
殿前，
hand.
所以 Rukmini 就抓住他的
Commentators
手，把他
again
拽
say
进了
when Lord
这个
Ramachandra
皇宫。
appeared, his
那么评
consort
论
was
者说
Sita. When Krishna
Ramachandra
appeared, she
显
came
现
as
的时候，
Rukmini.
他的伴侣是 Sita， 而当 Krishna 显现的时候，
The
同一个
the
Sita
next
是
painting is a
Rukmini。
celebrated painting. Many of you have seen it
那
probably
接下来
hundreds
的
of
这个图
times
也是
if
非
you like
常著
paintings.
名的这个图，
There's
想你
the
们可能
bag
看
of
了
over his
成千上
shoulder,
万遍了。
and he's got his
那
walking
么这
stick
个
in his other
Sudama
hand.
肩上背
And
着小包
Krishna's
裹，
coming down. Now, this painting
Krishna-
shows coming from a throne, but it
Krishna 是
says
从皇座上
the
走下来。
Bhagavatam says he came from his
那博伽瓦
consort's
坛说的
bed.
是
He was sitting together.
Krishna 是从他
The
伴
other
侣的
paintings
这
show
个
that.
床榻上起身的。
Lord Achyuta was seated on his consort's bed, spotting the Brahmana
那
at
么
some
主阿丘
distance.
塔坐在他
The
妻子的
Lord
床上，
immediately stood up,
然后看
went
到
forward to
远
meet
远的就
him,
看到
and
这
with
个婆罗门
great
的到来。
pleasure embraced
Krishna 立
him.
刻就起身站起来，然
There
后
he is
前去
with his
迎接
arms
他，
outstretched.
怀着极大的这
Now,
个喜乐，去
Acharya's
拥抱他。
comment, when
我
Krishna
们
saw him
阿
from
查
a
亚的评述
distance,
是说，那么 Krishna 从远远的就看到他
Krishna experienced confusion.
，Krishna 就处在困
Now,
惑
what's
之中。
that?
那个
Sri
困惑是
Radhika,
什
is
么
she
呢？
here? What was Krishna experiencing when he experienced confusion?
那 Krishna 他感到困惑，他体验的到底是什
A
么样的情
transcendental
感呢？
emotion, right?
是个
No,
超然的情
worldly
感，对
people
吗？
get confused, but
那
Krishna's
世
not a
俗
worldly
世俗的人
person, so he
会
can't
感
get
到困
confused,
惑，但
right?
Krishna 他不是世俗的人，
It's an ecstasy.
所以呢，Krishna 其实体验的是这种狂喜。
Confusion is normally not an ecstasy.
那
It's
么通常来
unpleasant.
说，世俗的这种，
But for Krishna,
这
it's
种
an
困惑并不是
ecstasy.
狂
And
喜，
the ecstasy was
但是对于
he
Krishna
is
来说，这种超然
omniscient.
的情感是这种
It's not
狂
like he
喜。
didn't know
Krishna
Sudama's
无所
coming.
不知，不
He's
是说他不知
omniscient.
道
Is
Sudama
there
要来，
something he
他
doesn't
完全的
know?
他无所不知，
Well, he
没
knows
有什么东西
everything.
他不知道，
And here comes
他知
Sudama.
道一切。那现在 Sudama 来了，
Astonishment,
他却表现出震惊和困惑。
right? From like this story from Chaitanya Charitamrita. Again and again,
那是像
astonishment,
Chaitanya
astonishment.
Charitamrita
So
中的
even Krishna becomes
这样
astonished,
的表达出来的，就是
or
不断的出现这种惊讶的
confused.
情况，
He stood,
甚至 Krishna 也会表
and
现
he
出这种
didn't
超然的这种
know
惊讶。
exactly the etiquette to observe. He didn't know exactly the etiquette because here comes this exalted Brahmana, and I'm a Kshatriya. So what did he do? He embraced him. Now that's not what you do with a Brahmana. For if you're a
处
Kshatriya,
在狂喜之
you
中的
offer
时候，
respects. So he did that next.
他都不知道他该
But
做什么样的事
so
情。那
it's
他是一个
it's
Kshatriya，他
one
先
of
去拥
the
抱这个 Brahmana。
sweetest
实际
parts
上，这
of
并不是礼
Krishna's
仪中的一部分。
pastimes with devotees he has such affection for,
崇拜他，
like Sudama,
但
is
是当 Krishna 遇到像 Sudama 这样满怀
there's
着
this
关爱的见
flow,
人的时
like
候，
I like it to a river
way-
flowing.
就像
Sometimes
一
there's
条
this
河
mood,
流一样。
sometimes there's
有
that
的时候
mood,
呢，
just like
流动着这样的
the
情
movements
绪；
of
有的时候
a river,
流
the
动着这样
waves of a river
另外一种
moving
情
like
愫，
this, and
就像
that
河流
that
中的
wave
不同的这
subsides, and
种
here comes another wave, and that wave
从这边有这样的
collides
浪
with
头
another
过来，
wave, and it
那边又
mixes,
有
and it
另外的
becomes
这
another
个
wave, and
河流的这种
it's
支流
very
过来，
spontaneous,
所以是完全
very
非常自发的这样的一种
mystical,
情感的这种
and
流
very
动，
attractive,
非常的玄秘，
especially when you
但是
start
非常的
thinking
吸
or
引人。
meditating
尤
on
其是当
the
你
movements
去
of the
冥想、
moods
去
of
想
loving
到这
exchange
些
between Krishna and his
爱
devotee.
心交流的这种情愫的流动的时候，他的奉献者
Between Krishna and his devotee, the mood
Krishna 和
is
奉
very
献者之间
fluid
的
and very
爱心的
dynamic
流
and
动的
very
时候，
sweet. Now,
那
it's
他们
the,
这种
in
流
its
露的这种情
pinnacle
感
of
是非常
sweetness
的
in
动态，
Vrindavan,
非常的甜
but
美。
here's Krishna with someone who he had from childhood a friendship, and we're going to go in, he
但
is
是
going to
Krishna
speak
即便在这里
in very friendly
，Krishna 看到
terms and
他
how
昔日
that
的
friendship was
童年的
established,
这种好友，
like
他
with
这个
us. It was established for them as for us by service together. And the service together is service to Guru together. We'll
那么
hear.
当时 Krishna
So he's
和
going to
这个 Sudama 的
indicate
友谊是
that
建立
so
在一起服务
it
他们的
starts
故事的
with he becomes
所以
confused
这也是给我们的我们
in
也是这样建
ecstasy.
立的这样的友谊。
Next, in that confusion, a primary emotion between him and Sudama is he embraces him.
那么这个时候 Krishna
Lord
出于这样的
Achyuta
友谊
went
就开
forward
始
and
想去拥
joyfully
抱他。那么
and
主阿
firmly
丘塔
embraced him with
就前
outstretched
去
arms all
非
over
常
his
喜悦的
body,
想去拥
his
抱他，
eyes filled
伸出
with
他的双
tears.
臂。那当时 Krishna 的双眼充满了这个泪
Sudama
水。
is bringing ecstasy to Krishna, as what to speak of what
Sudama
Krishna is
就
bringing ecstasy to
处
Sudama.
在
The
狂
lotus-eyed
喜之中。
Supreme Lord
那
felt,
Krishna 也
felt
双方都在
intense
狂喜之中。
ecstasy
那么
upon
莲花眼
touching
的
the
这个
body
主
of his dear
感受到
friend,
一种
the
强烈的
wise
狂喜，
Brahmana,
当他触摸到他的朋
and
友
thus
这个
shed
明智的
tears
婆罗
of
门的
love.
身体的时候，然
There's
后 Krishna 就
Krishna
流出了
embracing
爱的眼泪。
Sudama. Now there it shows Sudama in a
图中
nice
就是 Krishna
garment,
在
but
拥
normally
抱
in
这
it,
个
there's his
Sudama。
bag. She looks like a nice bag too, but it
那
was just
Sudama 在这里
rags.
穿的似乎还穿的还不错，手里还抓了一个
Sudama
不
was
错
a
的包
Brahmana
袱。
and a
那
sage
通常
who knew
是
the
Sudama
glories
穿的非常
of
破烂。
bhakti to the
那
Lord. Krishna, this is
Sudama
commentary,
他是一个
these
婆罗门
small
和一个
little
圣者，他
letters
知
in
道对主
yellow.
的 bhakti。
Krishna was
那
blissful and most
Krishna
affectionate.
非常的狂喜，而且
Prita,
是
he
最
shed
为
tears
这个
with
仁慈的
intensity.
Prita。那
Lord
Krishna
Krishna
就
seated his
大量
friend
的流出
Sudama
这个泪
upon the
水。
bread. Now he's going to worship him.
他看
The
到，
mood shifts.
那现在他把他的
He's
这
a
个
Brahmana,
朋
I'm
友
a
Sudama 放
Kshatriya,
到
and I'm
床
going
上，
to honor
然
the
后开始
Brahmana
要
as
崇拜
a
他。
Kshatriya should
那
honor
现
a
在他切
Brahmana.
换了他的这种
He
情绪，
seated
开
Sudama
始
upon
以
the
这
bed.
个查出亚荣耀
After
婆罗门
embracing
的
him a
方式来去
long
崇拜他。
time, he made him sit on the bed by force since Sudama was afraid to do so.
那么 Sudama 因为很不情愿，很
It
不
should be
不敢去坐到
understood
床上，所以 Krishna
in
强迫让
all
他
the
坐
other
到这个床榻
actions
上。
that Krishna personally performed all the things that these services. He didn't have a servant come and do, or a Brahmana come and do. He
那么
did
Krishna
himself.
是亲自来做的。
You see all the
那么 Krishna 是
paraphernalia
亲
up
自
there.
来
You
做这
see
样的服
Sudama
务
with
的。
his little bag of rice, seated on this luxurious
那么你会看到图上
bed of
，Sudama 拿着
Rukmini
一个
and
小的包裹，
in his rags,
那背
skinny
后
as
是
can
鲁克
be.
米。
Then the
那么
Lord, who
床榻上
purifies
是
the whole
受
world,
过五阴
personally
行的
offered him
Sudama。
various tokens of respect and
那么
washed
接
his
着至
feet
尊
in a
主
golden
净化
basin,
整个世界的至
after
尊
which
主，
he sprinkled the water on his own
用金
head.
色的这个盆子来去洗
Now
他
the
的
queens are
脸。
watching from the background. There's
那
Rukmini
么
with
在
a
远远的地
pitcher
方
for
可以
more
看到皇
water,
后在看着这一
and
切，
there's
在
Sudama
旁边呢则是
not paying
鲁克米尼
attention at all to
去
his
协助
feet.
Krishna。
He's paying attention to
那
Krishna's
么这个
eyes. Here's a
Sudama 完
close-up
全不
of
注意他的脚，
they're
他完
staring
全
at
的
each other's eyes.
目不转睛的
Krishna
盯着
has
Krishna 的
tears
眼
in
睛，
on his cheek. Sudama has
而
tears on
Krishna
his
的
cheek.
脸颊
And
上
it's not
流下
about
了
the
眼
Brahman
泪
and Kshatriya,
，Sudama 的
it's
脸
about
上
their
也流
loving
下了眼泪。
affection for one another. But Krishna is setting an
所以他们
example
双方之间
for
不是
the
一个查出亚和
residents
婆罗
of
门的关系，
Dvaraka.
而是彼此的爱的
The
流露。
Lord did this because he is controlled by prema. He that sprinkled the
那
water
么
on his
Krishna 之
head
所以这么做，
because
是因
he's
为
controlled by prema. This is the same painting.
他完全的被 prema 所控制。
This looks like the original from which the newer one was made, and this is the newer one.
那么这似乎
Very
是
similar, right?
一个翻新的图
Very
片，
similar, but not the same. That incense
非
burner
常
on
的
the
类
right
似。
side changes over to that one. But the gesture of sprinkling the water from his washing his feet. Now
那么
this is
Krishna 就
Krishna
把这个洗足水洒到自己的
because
头
of
上，
the love for Sudama.
因为他对这个
And
Sudama 的
Sudama
一片
is
爱。
stunned at this behavior of Krishna. Rukmini is also stunned.
Sudama 看到
The
这一
other
幕，
queens, look
也
at
震
those
惊不
queens
已。
in the background,
那 Rukmini 也被这
or
一幕所震
maidservants,
惊了，
whoever
所
they
有
are,
的这个
they're
所
also
有的
stunned.
女仆、皇后也
Sudama's
非常
body
的
was
震惊。
discolored because of suffering from
Sudama 的
cold.
身体
The
非常的
description
苍
of
白，
his
因为
condition,
他
from the
就是饱受
description
了
of
这
his
种寒冷。
condition, it was not proper for Rukmini to worship him.
那
This
么
comes
从
in
这个
several of the
Sudama 的这
commentaries,
种
but
境
she
况
did
的描述来
anyways.
说，
There she
对于
is with her
Rukmini 来去
chamara.
崇拜他，其实是不恰当、不合适
Still
的，
she
但是
worshipped him
Rukmini
because of her
正
affection
在
for
拿他的这个
Brahmanas.
chamara 去崇拜他。
And elsewhere it is said she did because she was so chaste
在
to her
别的地
husband,
方，
and
这样
whatever her
说，
husband is doing, she just wants to
有的
assist
地
her
方说是
husband.
Rukmini 这么做是因为心
Rukmini
于
also
喜爱
worshipped
婆
him
罗门，另
because
外一方面
she
说
was
的是她
obedient
对
to her
她的丈
husband,
夫非常
and
的
as a
忠
young
心，
girl dedicated to the
作为
Lord.
她
So this is
就是
a
作为一个就是
celebrated
完全
pose. So there's many
将自己奉献
paintings
于
of
至
this
尊主的
scene.
这样的一个妻子。
Krishna washing the feet of Sudama.
那不是同样的图，
Sudama
就是
dressed in rags, sitting
Krishna 在
there,
给 Sudama 洗足，
allowing Krishna to do
Rukmini 在
this.
一旁。
I imagine he felt uncomfortable like anything. But, you know,
那么
love
可以
can
想象
know no
Sudama 肯定
boundaries.
感觉到非常的
By
非常
fanning
尴
him
尬，
with
但
her
是呢，
chamara,
爱是没
the
有
divine goddess of
边界的。
fortune personally served that poor Brahmana whose
幸运
clothing was
幸运女
torn
神
and
就亲自的
dirty,
用她的
and it
chamara
was
去
so
为
thin
Sudama 商量。
that veins were visible all over his body.
那这个婆罗门非常的状况不堪，
You can see
他
his
的这
ribs,
个
but
受
I
苦灵血
can't
并
see
青
his
筋暴
veins.
露。
Another painting similar. Another
还有
painting
另外一
similar.
幅
It's a celebrated scene. Krishna is worshipping
这是一
Sudama,
幅非常著名的场景
the
，Krishna 在
favorite
崇拜 Sudama 婆
subject
罗
for
门。
artists. After having him bathe, since
那么
he
在给
had
这个
worn
Sudama 洗足
out
之后，
clothing, Krishna gave him
由
new
于 Sudama
clothes.
穿着破布，所以 Krishna
The
给了他
reason
新
is
衣服。
revealed later. I'll tell you ahead of
那
time
么
what the
这个
reason
原因
is.
后面
The
会
reason
解释这
is
个，那我
comes
会
in the
先
next
告诉你们
chapter.
原因是什
We're
么。
not going to go to the
原
next
因是
chapter.
在
We're
下
just
一
going to
章
stay
写
with
到
this
的。
one.
那我们
Because
今天可能
this
讲
one
不
is
到下一章。
focusing on the guru-disciple relationship.
这一章只是专注在
When he
这
goes
个
back home,
guru 和门徒的关系。
Brahma, you
他
know,
回到
you know
家
the
里的时
story.
候，
The next
知道这个
morning,
故事。下一
Sudama's
第二
ready to
天呢，
depart. Krishna said, "Did you
Sudama
bring
就
me
准备离
something?"
身。那么
And he didn't say
Krishna
no,
说
but he didn't
你
say
有
yes.
给我带来什么
So
东西呢？
Krishna saw
那
it, he
Sudama
knew
他没
he
有
was
说
hiding that
是
bag.
也没有
So
说不，
Krishna snatched the
但只有
bag.
Krishna 就发现了他
And
带
Krishna started
抱
eating
着
from the
睡眠的小
bag.
包裹。那
He
Krishna 就
ate
抢
one
过来，然后
morsel.
开始从
Then he
这个包
reached
裹
for
中
another morsel.
吃了一把。
Rukmini caught his
他准
hand
备再抓一把的时候 ，Rukmini 把他
with
的
the
手给制
indication
止。
it's not suited for you.
那他说到这个对你来说是不恰
So
当的。
but he accepted that, you know,
但是
insignificant
Krishna 接
offering
受了
and was fully
这些，
satisfied.
将这个碎米作为这个非常重要的
Patram
供
pushpam
奉，而且
palam
非常的
toyam.
满足。
Because that's all he had. If you have more, you offer
所以
more.
就
But
是
if
怀着
that's all
爱
you
心，
have, you offer what you
供
have
奉一杯水，
with
有
love.
鲜
And
花
that's
一
what
颗
he
叶子，
did.
他都会接受，只要怀着爱。
So he's
这是
going
Sudama 就
home
在做的事情。所以 Sudama 就回家了。
from the city of Dvaraka to a little place in
从
Porbandar.
Dvaraka 回
And
到这个小地
his
方 Porbandar，
thought as he's walking back home
那
was,
他在路上就一路
Krishna
想
is so
着，他的
kind.
想法就是 Krishna 真仁慈，
Krishna is so kind. He didn't
Krishna
even
太仁
ask
慈了。
me why I came to
甚至
see
都
him.
不问我，我为什么
Because
要
if he had asked me
来见他？
why I had come to see
因
him,
为
I
如果
would have
他
had
问
to
我的
tell
话，
him the truth.
问我
And if I
为什
told
么要
him the
去见他，
truth,
那我必
then
须
he
要
would have
实
given
话实
me
说。
so many
那
nice
如果我
things,
要
and he
说
knows
实
that I
话的
don't
话，
like nice
他肯定
things.
就要给
So he
我
didn't even
这
ask me.
些华丽的东西。
Krishna is
但
so
他
kind.
但我不想要这些东西，所以 Krishna 甚至连问都不问。Krishna 真是太仁慈了。
And when he got home, he
那
couldn't
当他
find
回
his
家的
home.
时候，他都
Instead of
连
his
他
home,
自己
there
的
was
家
this
都找不到，
big palace.
因为 Sudama 的
Like,
家
what
已经
happened
变
to my
成了一座
home?
豪华的宫殿。
I was only here a couple,
但他想
just one
我的
day
家在哪
ago,
儿？
and my home's gone.
只不
Instead,
过是
there's
一
this big
天
palace.
前
What's
而已。
going on?
那么
And then
现
this
在我的
lady
家
came out
就
of the
在
palace,
只是看到华丽的宫
all
殿，
decorated in fine ornaments and jewelry and this and
而
that.
且所
And
有的这些女士围
you
绕
know,
着宫
who
殿，
are
这些
you?
女士都穿金戴银。
I'm your wife. What
那么这个
happened?
时候，他在想他的
And she said, well, I thought
认
you
不出
made
来
this
他的妻
arrangement
子
with
了。
Krishna.
他看
And
到
you
这个
asked him,
女人
and this is what
穿金
Krishna
戴银，
did. Because
就问
these
他是
things
谁，
happened. She
结果
described
原
what
来就是他
happened.
的妻子。
And then Sudama understood.
那接着 Sudama 就明白了这一
And
切。
Krishna is so kind. He didn't even ask me, but he knew the purpose.
他
And
他
he,
问
look
都
what
不
he
问，
did.
但他却知道我的这个目的。
He was overwhelmed.
看看他都做了些什么。
It
所
said
以
he continued his lifestyle,
他完
sleeping
全
on the stone floor, dressed in rags.
被
He
这一切所
didn't
震惊。
take
那么据
advantage of
说
the luxury
Sudama 继续他这样的生活
of
简朴的
opulent
生活
life
方式，
because he had a dislike, and Krishna wouldn't give it to him because he had a dislike for it. He didn't force it, but his wife wanted. Now it says his wife wanted
因
for
为他
his
本
sake,
身并不想要这
so
些
he
东
must
西，
have
所以
had
Krishna 并不
something to
强
eat
强加给他
besides,
这些
you know,
东西，
nothing,
只是
as like
只是他的
was
妻子
before.
想要一些东西。
But he didn't. The rest of the
由于
opulence
他的
was
妻子
not
想让他的丈
required
夫，
by him. In
所
fact, he
以
didn't. He just didn't like it.
所以 Krishna 才
Do you know any
这个
devotees
Sudama
like
婆
that?
罗门这
I
些
know
东
some
西。
devotees like that. I know
你
householder
们认识这
devotees
样的
like
奉
that.
献者吗？
They just don't like.
那我是认识这
I
样的
just
风
don't
先生
like.
的， 认识这样的居士奉献者，他
I
们就
could
是
say
不
some
喜
names,
欢
but
这
I
些
won't
财
say
富。
some names. They just don't like.
我可以
So they
把他
live
们名字说出来，但是我在这
you
里就
know,
不说
as
了。
simply as you can
他们
imagine.
就
They
是
just don't
不
like.
喜欢这样的这种财
It's
富
not
的生
only
活。
sannyasi, not only household, there's sannyasis. Some sannyasis live whatever, whatever. And some sannyasis just don't like. Just don't like. So
那
different
光是
natures.
居士，有些这
So,
个桑尼亚西他们生活
Krishna
方
gave
式
him
是
some
一种，
nice clothes
还有
after
另外
giving
一些
him
桑尼亚
bath.
西
He
他们就
anointed
不
him
喜
with
欢这些东西。
divinely
不
fragrant
同的这样的这
sandalwood,
种不同的这
which he
种
didn't like because it was
这
opulent.
种风格。
Aguru and Kunkum pastes, and
那这时
happily
候 Krishna 就
worshipped
开始
him
给
with
这个
aromatic
Sudama 身
incense
上涂上这个香
and
膏。
arrays of lamps. Here they're pretty busy with his feet still.
那
The
么
Lord
而且
then
用这个
offered him
香
a
和
meal.
灯去崇拜 Sudama。
After finally offering him
那
betel
么之
nut
后，
and the gift of a
至尊
cow,
主就是
so
用
this
盛宴款
reception
待
of
了
Kshatriya to
Sudama
Brahmana is now
最
complete.
后呢，给他提供这个
And the scene is going to
槟榔
start to
果，
change. The mood is
是
going
给
to
他一
start
头
to
奶牛
change.
作为礼物。
There you
那
see
么这个时候
the
，Krishna 的
attendants in
情
the
绪开始
back
发生了
giving
变化。
things for Krishna to
看
give to
到
Sudama,
远
etc.
处有些人
Bathing
正
of
在
the
看
feet
着
is over now.
Krishna
The people in the
对这
royal
个
palace were
Sudama 做
astonished
的 这
to see
些服务。
Krishna, the
所以
Lord of
宫殿中这
spotless
些人都
glory,
非常的
so lovingly
惊讶，
honor the shabbily
因为
dressed
Krishna
Brahmana.
这个
What's
荣耀
going
无边的
on?
至尊主现在正在
Krishna
充满爱
worshipped
心的
Sudama with
去
great prema.
对待这一位非
The
穿着
residents of
非
the
常破
palace
败的这
said,
样的一个婆罗门。
"What pious acts has this
Krishna 真
unkempt,
的怀着极大的
impoverished Brahmana
prema 在
performed?"
崇拜着 Sudama。
Commentary
宫殿里
says,
的人就说，
"We should do such
而
punya
这个视频的婆罗门究竟做了什
to
么样的
get
虔诚
Krishna's
活动？
affection."
我们也要做这样的
People
敬畏的活
regard
动。
him as the Brahmana
那人们
as lowly and
认为这
contemptible,
个
yet
婆
the
罗门呢
spiritual
是
master
非
of the
常的
three worlds,
非常的
the abode
非
of the
常的
goddess
卑
of,
贱的
of fortune
这个
Shri,
身份卑微的这样的一个
is
状态。
serving him
但是
reverentially,
三个世界的至尊主，三个世界的理性导师，
leaving the goddess of
这
fortune
个心理
sitting
神的
on
居
her
所，
bed. The Lord has embraced this Brahman as if he were
却
an
在
older
亲自的
brother.
这样的怀着敬意去崇拜他，去服务他。
Okay, so
而且
now
呢，
all of that is over. The astonishment of the
至尊主把这个仙女
citizens in
神撇在
Dvaraka,
一
the
边，
ones that had
去拥
observed
抱
all
这
of
个婆罗
this.
门，就像拥抱他的这
Now
个
the scene
哥哥一样。
changes, the mood changes,
那么
and
现在这
Krishna
个
starts
场
remembering
景也
their
发生了
childhood
变化，
activities
这个
together,
心态也发生了变
the
化。
friendship.
那 Krishna 开始回忆起他们童年的这样的一
So there's the children in the school, and at the
所以当时
school
就是
at the
除了还
bottom
在学
that's
校里面
Krishna
是孩
and
童的时候，
Sudama,
在底下是
in the upper
Krishna 和
part it's
Sudama，
Krishna Sudama, and it's really
这
hard
上
to
面是童
find
年期的
the name of
Krishna 和
Sudama
Sudama。
Vipra's wife. You have to search for it. I had to search for it. Sushila,
那 Sudama 的妻
not
子其实叫
Sushila.
Sushila，
That's his wife's name. Her name is, maybe it's going to show up shortly. Can't remember her name right now. Starts with an S. Sushila. Not Sudama's wife. Sandipani Muni's wife.
啊，那这里说的
Sandipani
是
Muni's
桑
wife.
迪
She
帕
has a
尼
name
穆尼
too.
的妻子，桑迪帕尼穆尼的妻子，那后面会出现他的这个妻子的名字。
Sukadev goes, so that's his wife, Sandipani
那
Muni's wife.
Goswami
Taking each other's hands,
就说
Krishna
到
and Sudama talked
这个
pleasantly
Krishna 和 Sudama 手拉手
in
的
Rukmini's
非常愉
palace
悦的在交谈，
about
就在
how
如
they
意的
once
宫殿里
lived
面，
together in the school of their
就
guru.
讲到他们昔日是如何在 Guru 的
Because
学
the
校里
Lord
面
showed
是在一起
friendliness
生
by
活
taking
的。
his hand,
因为
Sudama
Krishna
also expressed
拉着他的手，
friendship
展现
by
出他的
taking
这
the
样的
Lord's hand. Now remember, he's
所以
understanding
Sudama
Krishna is the Supreme
也拉
Lord.
着 Krishna 的手，
And
表达
Krishna's
他的这样
extending
的
his hand,
友谊。
so he's
那么
extending his
他知
hand
道
back
这
to
是他的
Krishna.
至
He's
尊主，
reciprocating
但当至尊主
that
拉着
kind
他
of
的手的时候，
affection.
他也以这同样的
Commentary
友爱
says
之
their
情
talk
回应着主。
was most attractive to
评论
all the
说
world.
他们的
Lalita.
对话
The
吸
Supreme
引着
Lord
整个世
said,
界。拉里塔，
My dear
至
Brahmana,
尊主说道：“我
you
亲
know
爱的
well
婆
the
罗门，
ways of Dharma.
你非常的清楚
After you offered the
Dharma
gifts of remuneration to our
在
Guru and
你给我
returned
们的
home from
这
his
个 Guru
school,
谢师礼之后，
did you
回
marry a
回
compatible
家
wife or
离开
not?
学校之后，
As if he didn't know.
你有没有娶一位这个恰当的妻子
And
呢？”
Sudama's not saying anything. He just
苏达玛什么都没有
in
说。
awe being with Krishna. Though Sudama was dressed as a
苏达玛也都
householder,
处在这
he
种
did not
敬畏
appear
之
to be
心， Krishna
enjoying
在一
any
起。
material pleasure.
那
Therefore,
么
Krishna
尽管
asked
苏达玛他
him
穿着一
if he
个
was
居士
married
衣
or
服，
not.
但是他却
Continuing,
表现不出任
Krishna
何对
said, "You
物质
know well
享
the
乐的这
religious
种
principle,
享受这种
Dharma
愿望。
Vya,
因此
that
Krishna 就
after
问他他有没有结
graduating from
婚。
school, one should
Krishna
get
就说道
married in order to prevent
你
the
完全的
fault
清楚 Dharma
of
Vya，
having no ashram,
那么在毕业
of
之
course,
后，
unless he was going to remain as a brahmachari.
你应该结婚
Even
的，
though
然
you
后
are
去避免自己没
mostly
有
involved in
ashram 这
household
样的
affairs, your
这样
mind
的一
is
个
not
错误
affected
的
by
状
material
态。
desires, nor, O learned one, do you take much pleasure
尽管
in the
你
pursuit
深
of
陷
material
这些
wealth. This
知
I'm
识
well
的
aware
事
of. So
物，
he's
但
asking
是你
some
的心里
questions
却
that
完
he
全
already
不
has
被
answers to.
物质
And he's
欲望所
disclosing
沾
his
染。
omniscience, by the way.
所以 Krishna 在这里面在揭
Just
示他的
see,
这种
this
全部性。
man, though a householder, is without desires and does not desire
那么
anything from
Krishna 就
others.
说，看呐，
Even
尽
if
管这个人是
forcibly
一个
given, he will
居
not
士，
accept things.
如果哪怕别人去
Krishna
强
is
迫
noting
去给他财富的话，他也不会
his
接受的。
disposition.
所以这就是他的奉献者的这样的
Krishna
一个
said,
情
even
况。
though you're not speaking out of embarrassment, I know the
Krishna
actual
说，即便
situation. This
你
is
出于这种尴尬，你
Vishwanath's
不会
commentary.
你不会开口，但是我完全清楚你的这个处境。
Though you are a householder,
Sudama,
same
尽
as
管
the
你是个
previous
居士，
verse, your heart is not disturbed by
你
lust.
的心却不被色欲
O wise
所扰。
one, Vidvan,
明智之人啊，
I know that
明道
because you understand the
Vidvan，
temporary nature of
我
material
知道
enjoyment,
是因为
you
你
have
了解
little
这些
attraction
短
for
暂的
wealth,
感官享乐的这
clothing,
种天性。
and other things. Therefore,
你对财
these
富、
material things
衣
have
服
not been
和其
given
他
to
东
you.
西丝毫不感兴趣，
Note,
因此这些物质的东西
this is
我就没
Vishwanath's
有给到你。
commentary, but he's, Krishna
这是
already
Vishwanath 这个
understands
comment 他
he
quote 的
doesn't
比较
want
熟，
these
也
things.
就是说 Krishna 已
So
经
they haven't been
理
given
解
them
了
because he
Sudama
doesn't
根本
want
不
these
想要这些
things.
东西，所以 Krishna 不给这
It's
些
not
他不
like
想
he's
要的
praying
东
to
西。
Krishna, please give me this and that and the
不是
others.
说
Om Jai Jagadisha
他祈
Hare.
求 Krishna， 哦 Krishna
Not
给我
like
这个
that.
给我那个Jagadisha Hari。那 Sudama 并不是这样的。
Sumukhi, that's it. Radha Krishna Gonargesh Deepika. It's coming up in one of the slides. I just couldn't remember. Sumukhi. Nice name.
桑迪帕尼的
Again,
母亲叫
Vishwanath
Sumukhi
writes, For the sake of your wife, you are displaying a favorable
因为你妻子
disposition
的
towards
缘故，
material wealth. This
才展
indicates
现
that
出对
Krishna will
这个
give
物质
these
财
things
富的这
later.
种这种倾向。那么 Krishna
Commentary. I will not
就在
reveal
暗
his
示
desire
他
to
后面
anyone,
会
and
给他一
therefore
些
I
东
will
西。
not give anything visible to him here. So now they're
Krishna
recounting
决
their
定
childhood
我会在
together.
这里向别人
Having
解
renounced
释
all
他
material
的解释这一
propensities
点。
which spring from the Lord's illusory
就在
energy,
这里 Krishna
some
不会
people
给他任何
execute
东西。
worldly duties with their minds undisturbed by mundane desires.
那么已
They
经弃绝
act
了
as
所
I
有这些
do
物质倾向，
to instruct the general
这些都
populace.
是来自主的虚
So
幻能量
being
的这些东
unattracted,
西。
Krishna is likening himself to Sudama,
但
but
是
he is
这个
one
居
who
士
has opulence, but he's not
以
attracted
一
to it.
种不被打扰的
So
心
he's
态在揭示
displaying
这个
the example
从事
for the
世俗的
worldly
职分。
people that want opulence, how to, you may be around opulence, but how to be unattached to it. That's
所
what
以
he's saying
Krishna
to
在给世
Sudama.
人展现
So
出
you've
这样的一
taken
个
marriage
一个榜样。
because you're also teaching
是
this by your example. Notice that little
那
bag
么就是
on
以
his
让
right
苏达玛
side,
他以身
the
以他的
celebrated
这个
bag of
例子来
rice.
向世人证明，就如何身处在这些世
Though
俗事
not
物之中，
completely overcome
财
by
富之中，但
desire,
是不被沾
some,
染。
listen to this, this is a nice instruction. Though not
这个是非常
completely
好的一
overcome
个
by
教导。
desire,
尽
some with
管
discrimination get
他没
married
有
and follow conduct of a householder
尽
to
管没有
destroy
被这
the
个欲望所
attraction
扰，
for
但有
enjoying.
些人呢，他们怀着这样的一种
You follow
辨
what's
别的
being
心
said?
一种明智的心态，
The
他们
prescribed
结了婚，
duties are
并且遵
for
循这
persons
个
that have
居
desire
士的
is
这
to
种生活
regulate
方式，
desire and elevate
去摧毁他们的这种享受的倾
consciousness
向。
to go beyond the standard of that desire. So, what Krishna is saying, the
那么他们
commentary,
的知觉
this is commentary,
让他们超
some
越了这
persons
些
have that
欲望的这
understanding.
些层面。
They're not
所以
completely
Krishna 在这
overcome by
就说到，
desire. They want to become free from that desire, so they enter into the
那么
situation
有些人，
not completely overcome by
有些
the
人，
attraction for that situation in order to become gradually purified or to
那么
destroy
有些人
the
他们进入
attraction
这
for
样的这种
enjoying
居士生活呢，
whatever
是
that
为了
something
摧毁
is.
这些残余的这些感官享乐的
Nice
倾向。
teaching. It's a good one to
这是
remember.
非常好的
This
一
is the
个
Yukta
教
Vairagya
导。
principle.
那么这就是 Yukta
Krishna
Vairagya
said,
的这个原则。
commentary. When you see that
那 Krishna
painting
就
on the right,
评论
that's
中就说
Krishna's
到，
commentary.
这是 Vishwanath
I know very well
评述。
that you did not
Krishna
take
说我非常的
sannyas
清楚，
like others,
你
even
没有
though
像
you
其
are
他人一样
renounced.
接受 sannyasi
As a
戒
as a
尽管
Brahmana,
你
he
非常的
could have
清
done
楚。
that. He didn't do
那
that.
作为婆罗门，他原本可以
Those who are
成为这个
detached
托钵僧的。
engage in
那
work,
Krishna 说，
even though their minds are
那
not
些气绝之人
attracted by material
在从
desires.
事种种的
By
工作，
working in this
但他
way,
们
they
的
give
心
up
意却不被
the
世俗的
perverted
这
propensity
些
of the
愿
mind
望
to
所
create
吸引，
desires for
通过以这
material
样一种方式
enjoyment.
来去活动，一种方式来工作。
So far, it's been like
他
a
放弃了这
kind of
些
like a varnashram
心意中的这些
discussion about
这些
attachment,
非礼
detachment,
崇拜至尊主的
also
形象，
life, renounced life.
摆脱了
And
这些
now
不
comes
关
the
享
good
乐
old
的这种
days.
愿望。
Do you remember
那么
when
前面
we were
讲到了
students
这些
together?
之后，那 Krishna 开始
We lived
与
together
Sudama
in our
叙旧。
spiritual master's school.
那么 Krishna 就
When
说
a
：“Sudama，你还记得吗？
Christ-born
我们一起住
student
在老师的学
has
校里。
learned from his guru all that is to be
我们
learned,
作为这个
he
小孩
can
子，
enjoy spiritual life,
一个人如
which
果从
lies
他的 guru
beyond
那里
all
学到
ignorance.
所有的应当学
He's
习的知识，那么
complimenting
他就可以去
Sudama
享
for
受
having
他的一
achieved
起的
that.
生活。
Of course,
而
Krishna
这
is
里一起的
already
生活
there,
超越
but
了
he's
这
complimenting
个
Sudama
愚昧。
and his guru.
那么 Krishna 在
Realizing the knowledge
赞
imparted by
赏
one's guru,
Sudama 和他
one
的 guru，
surpasses ignorance with all its
通
suffering
过觉悟，
and attains
因为灵性老
Vaikuntha.
师授予的
To
知识，
destroy,
一个
this
人
is
就超越
commentary,
了
criticizing the fault of enduring great
正
hardships.
大外昆塔。
To destroy that criticism. So supposing somebody undergoes hardships, voluntary or
那么
involuntary,
假设有
and
些
some
人处
persons
在
may
这种
criticize, look how they're living
困
their
难之
life.
中，
To destroy that criticism and to show that such a life is the cause of happiness, he glorifies service to Guru in 4
那么
verses.
Krishna
In the service to Guru, there may be austerities,
在接下来第
as
4
in
个世界
Gurukul. It's
荣耀
this,
了
or
就是
and
对
and
咕噜
as
的
in
服
Hare
务的
Krishna
这样
movement,
的一种
there may be some austerities involved
的荣
in
耀。
serving, but it's
那么
not
在灵性
suffering.
老师的那个过程中，肯定
It's
有很多
the
的苦行
greatest
在里面，
happiness. That's
但是
what
这样
this
的苦行
topic
却是
is.
极大的快乐之源。那么这就是这个今天
Vishwanath
讲的一个
writes,
主题。
in his mind, Sudama
Vishwanath
doubted,
Chakravarti 说到，苏达玛
because
在他的
Krishna
心意中非
worships
常
me in
的
this
困惑，
way,
因为
although I'm
Krishna 以
so
这样的一种
lowly,
方式来崇
does
拜
he
我，
actually
尽管我是
recognize
这么的
who I
卑微，
am?
这么的低贱，但是 Krishna 有没有
To
究竟
dispel
认出
this
来我
doubt,
是谁
Krishna
呢？
reminds Sudama of
那
their
为了
school
驱
days
散这样的
together
疑惑，
in
所以
12
Krishna
verses.
就让苏达玛回忆起，就
Krishna
讲起了
begins to
他
relate
们
the
旧日
story
在学校里面的一起的
of
这
the
样说，
cause
用12
of
个
their
时间讲
friendship. The
述。
cause of their friendship was
所以
their,
Krishna 开
not
始讲
just
述一
the
个故
good
事，
old days,
去
but specifically
展现出他们当
undergoing
时成为结下友谊的
hardship,
原因。
purposefully serving Guru. And if things are nice, that's fine. If things aren't nice, that's fine. And that's the basis of our long-standing friendship, our love for one another.
那么他们的友
Sudama's
谊的
love
基
for
础是
Krishna
他
and
们一
Krishna's
起
love
不
for
论
Sudama.
不论结果
Like,
如
you know,
何，
as
都
soon as
坚
he
定
saw
不移的
Sudama, he
克
stood up
服
and
苦难，去服务
was
咕噜，这是他们友谊的
overcome.
根基。
He's a little bewildered. Same thing happened. Maybe you can remember this. When
那么
when
你们还记
Yudhisthira
得这
received
个？
Krishna,
当尤地提尔王
he was so
接待
overwhelmed with
Krishna 的时
spiritual
候，
emotion,
当时
he
他是
didn't know
如
what to
此的
do.
被灵
I
性
mean,
的
he's
情感
he's
所
a
包
knower
绕，
of
他都
it,
不知道自
social
己该做什
behavior,
么，
but he
因为他应该
his
知道这个
emotion was
是
so
这个
strong, he
这个
didn't
礼
know
节
what
是
to
什么，
do.
但是他的情感实
So
在是
Krishna just
太强
embraced
烈了，
him.
以至于他不知道该怎么做，所以 Krishna 当时只是去拥抱尤地提尔 Maharaj。
That's Ragamarg,
那
spontaneous
这就是
devotion.
Ragamag Bhakti，
It comes when the heart is
自发的
pure.
奉
The
爱，
heart doesn't have anything other than the
是
worshipable
完全的
object, Krishna, in one's
完全
mind.
的这个出自
And
这
then
个内心，
spontaneous emotions arise.
这些自
So
发的
Krishna
情感
begins
就自然的升起。
narrating their friendship
所以
activities
Krishna 开
together
始
in
去讲
childhood.
述他们在
Realizing
童
the
年时期
knowledge
这样的友
imparted
谊。
by one's guru, one surpasses ignorance
那么觉悟了
with
一
all
个
its
灵性
suffering
导
and
师授予
attains
的知识，
Vaikuntha
一个人就超越了
as a
所有的
secondary
这个
result.
愚昧，
What's that message? The
就
secondary
是真
result
大
is liberation,
怀昆塔。
and the primary
而这
result
个
is
结果
what?
呢，是一个次要的结果，
Is being situated in transcendent, a transcendental relationship with the
处在
Supreme.
超然的这种
And,
与至
you know,
尊主的超然的
byproduct is
关系中，
liberation, Vaikuntha
这
or
个是
wherever or
主要的。
wherever.
而这个副
The
产物就是
primary
说
is that
需要外
transcendental
昆塔，
relationship. This is the slide that has her name.
恢复与至尊主
Sumukhi.
的这样的
In
关
64
系
days, there's Sumukhi, by the way,
那么在64
patting
天，
Krishna.
那图上就
In
是
64 days, Krishna and Balaram mastered the 64 branches of knowledge, the
在64
Vedangas,
天 ，Krishna 和 Balaram
placing that knowledge
就
in their hearts
精
like
通了这
pictures,
个
since in their
64的这
hearts
个学问的分
lay
支，
the whole universe,
并
which
且
their
将这个
guru
知
could
识
not understand.
就如同
This is from
照
Gopal
片一样印
Champu.
在心中，
And there's
因为
Sumukhi.
他们的心中包含整个宇宙。
So there's one of the narrations, and
但
I
是这一
can't
点他
remember
们
which
完全
one,
并不知道
but you know,
就 Gopal Champu
Sumukhi
中
is
讲的，
thinking,
所以
why are you
Sumukhi
not
那里
engaging these two in menial service? And Sandipani Muni
那
says
当
they're
时就
exalted souls.
建议桑迪帕尼
Well, they still they
说
have to
为
have
什么
this
不让这两
training.
个孩子
He
做
gave them
卑
menial
微的这
service.
个服务
She's
呢？
like, she's a good wife.
但是 Sumukhi 就说你要想训练他们，就必须让他们做一
So
些
now
这个
Krishna is going to give
卑
some
微的服务。
lessons. This is the main reason for selecting
所以
this
Sumukhi
pastime.
也是非常
Lessons in Guru
非常好
Tattva.
的
My
一个
dear
先
friend,
期。那么
he
接下来是 Guru Tattva 的这样
is
的
the
教诲。
guru
我亲爱
who
的
gives
朋
a
友，
person his physical birth is his
那些
first
给予
spiritual
一个人
master,
的
the
这些
father.
身体上的
And
出生的
he
人
who
是第一位
initiates
理性
him
导师，
as a twice-born
而一
Brahmana
个
and
启迪这一个
engage
人的人
him,
呢，
engages
作
him
为
in
二
religious
次
duties
二次出生
is
的婆罗
indeed
门的，
more
给他
directly
这样
his
二次婆罗
spiritual
门出身
master.
启迪的人，则是并且让他从
Nice
事这
painting
个
of
宗
Krishna.
教职分的人，
But
则
now
要
look
比第一
from the
位
other
给他
side of the
具体的
page.
这个理性导师做
However,
指
the
点。
person who bestows transcendental knowledge
然而呢，那个赐予
upon the
超然的
members
知
of
识，
all spiritual orders of society is one's ultimate spiritual master.
给予这个
Indeed,
所有的
he is
灵
as good
性
as my
的
own
教导的
self.
人，
So he's placing a kind
那
of
么这样的人则是终极的
transcendental
理性导师。
hierarchy, you know, perfect, more perfect,
所以
more
这是一个
most perfect.
这是
The most
超然的这样
perfect
的一个等级，完美
is
更加完
Krishna
美，最
himself,
完
one
美。
who gives
最
knowledge,
完美，则是
spiritual knowledge,
Krishna 本
the
人
Shiksha Guru, or
赐
the
予
one who imparts knowledge of
赐予这样
Paradama,
灵性的知识，给予这个
Paradharma.
Paradama 至高的
There's
Dharma 的这样的灵性导师。
Swadharma, or religious duties that are to be
那
performed
有
according
Swadharma
to
就是
psychophysical nature,
世俗的宗教的
and
原
there's
则。
some teachings about that. And then there's
那
Paradharma,
么
and some
有
don't
关于
get the
这些的这
Paradharma.
个 Swadharma
That
的
person
知
is
识，
still their
那还有
guru,
关于
but it's not the
Paradharma
same, on the same level,
知
same
识。
platform. Of the three gurus, the one who gives knowledge of the Lord
那
is the
么在这
highest
三个
guru,
故之中，
commentary says.
给予关于至尊主的这
Still,
个
all
知识
three
的人，
gurus
则是
should be
最高的
taken
guru。
as equal,
那当然，这三
while
位
saying
古
they're
如果
not
当
equal,
平
they're
等对
equal.
待，
2 verses
尽管他
later,
们
Krishna
并不平
concludes
等。
by saying
那么在
that
两个世界之
service
后
to guru
，Krishna
is
给
the
出这
most
样的结论，
satisfying to him.
说通过服务一个人的
The,
咕
the,
噜，
this section is
是
the
最为
reason
取
for
至尊主的。
selecting this pastime for Vyasa Puja
这
specifically.
是为什么我要选择这个主题来
Certainly, O Brahmana,
Puja 的主这
of
个
all the
主
followers
题
of the
来讲。
Varnashram system, those who take
当然，
advantage
哦，
of the
婆罗
words
门啊，
I speak
在这个 Varna
in
Ashram
my
的这些
form
追随
as
者
the
中，
spiritual master and thus
那些
easily
充分的利
cross
用我的
over the
教诲
ocean of
的
material existence
人，
best
在我
understand
作
their
为
own
以理性导师的这种形象出
welfare.
现，讲述的这些教诲
So
的人，
on the left
那
is
这
the,
样的
the
人就能够
Varnashram
轻易的
system.
跨越物质存在
So
这样，
Krishna's
并且了
instructing
解他们自
about
己
the
真正的
Varnashram
利益。
system, and that's
那
very
Krishna 在
important
讲述这个 Varna
knowledge.
Ashram 这个
While there is a guru for Swadharma,
知
that's
识，
each one of the occupations and ashrams, there's
但
duties.
是当
The
存
Guru
在着教授
who
这个
gives Bhagavad
Swadharma 这
Dharma,
个社会阶
which
层和
is
灵
the
性阶段
second
的这样
type
的
of
咕噜
guru,
呢，
the
还有
Swadharma,
一个
and the
还有一个
Paradharma
教
or
授这个
Bhagavad Dharma,
Paradharma
the second
Bhagavad
type is
Dharma 这样
superior.
的理性导师。
Now, Sandipani Muni gave
这
both,
后者教授超然
and
知识的
Krishna is
人，则是
recognizing it, and
更
he's
为更高的理
recognizing
性导师。
that specific aspect that he
那你们在
feels
图中可以
affinity
看到，
for Sandipani Muni is his teaching about
桑迪帕尼
transcendental
尼在
knowledge of Paradharma.
教授
Again
教
comes
授
the
他们
question,
知
if
识。
he's a worshiper of Lord Shiva, how does he know Paradharma? You better
毫无
ask
疑问，桑
somebody
迪帕尼
else.
穆尼教授是 Paramdharma，
Or I'll
但是
continue
有人会
asking
问，
somebody
既
else,
然他
maybe
崇
I'll
拜
get an
崇
answer,
拜主
because
希瓦，怎么
sometimes
去
I
教授
get answers
Paramdharma
when I
呢？
keep asking.
那么你们可能会问这样的问题，但是我对此是没能给出答案。
I, the soul of all
可
beings,
能要去问。
Antaryami,
那么 Krishna
am
说，
not
我
as
是这个
satisfied by
众
ritual
生的灵
worship,
魂
one of these verses,
阿塔
for
亚。
medical initiation,
那么我并不
penances,
被那
or
些世俗的
self-discipline as
崇
I
拜
am
仪
by
规仪式
the
仪规的
faithful
崇拜而
service
取悦，也
rendered
不
to
被婆
one's
罗门起居
spiritual
而取悦，
master.
也不被一个人的自律或者 苦心而
So-
而取悦。
It's
又
in
不如我
the,
被一个
the
人
Srimad
用心
Bhagavatam
地
is the
去服务
graduate
他的这
study
个
of
导师
Bhagavad
而
Gita.
去。
So these teachings are Bhagavad Gita teachings. And it's
所
now
以这些知识
expanded
都是
in
这
the
些教导
graduate
是
study
国家瓦
literature.
坛当中的教导。
And Krishna saying it as he says Bhagavad Gita,
Krishna
he's saying to Sudama.
Krishna 就在国家法
But
歌
it's,
当
you
中
know,
就
it's the
这么
same
这
Krishna
么讲述
with
的。
expanding some very simple teachings.
那么 Krishna 在这
Oh
里讲述的是
Brahmana,
非常
do you
简单的一个教
remember
导。哦，
what
婆罗门
happened
啊，
to
你还
us
你还
while
记
we were
得
living with our
当时
spiritual
发生在
master?
我们身
Once
上
our
的事情
guru's
吗？
wife,
当我们住在一起去
Sumuki,
服务灵性导师的时候，有一
sent
次，
us to
那么
fetch
姑的妻
firewood
子 Sumuki
for the
让我们
yogi, right?
去森林里面去
So
捡
there
柴
they
火。
go. It looks like Krishna's playing.
你们在图中可以看到
Krishna addressed
他们
Sudama
在
as
捡柴。
Brahmana frequently to destroy his shyness and fear.
Krishna 不断的去称 Sudama
So
为
off they
婆罗
go,
门，是为了
gathering firewood.
打消他的这种羞涩和恐惧。
And as
所以
they're
图中就
gathering
是
firewood,
Krishna
something
和 Sudama 一起捡
unseasonal
柴火。
happens. An unseasonable
但在那个
storm
时候
starts to brew.
发生了一件就是
After we entered the
来到一个
vast
不合时宜
forest,
的这样
an
的
unseasonable
一
storm
场
arose
暴风雨。
with fierce wind and rain
当
and
时暴
harsh
风雨
thunder.
狂风乱作，而且霹雳就是闪烁。
Having extolled the virtue of service to Guru, Krishna now
那
invokes the
在讲
following
述了关
childhood
于
memory.
服务咕噜的这样的这个崇高
This
的
is
位
the,
置之
the
后
foundation of
，Krishna
their
现在
friendship.
去唤起他
By
们同居的
suffering
记忆。
hardship together
于
during
是
our
他们
service
有
to Guru,
他们之
we
间的这样的
establish
一种
firm friendship.
友谊的这种基础，就是
Sound familiar?
他们共患难，在服务咕噜的时候，他们
Oh
建立了他们的友
Brahmana,
谊。
he
哦，婆
calls out
罗
to
门
Sudama, remembering the
，Krishna
past
再次呼
events.
唤苏达玛，让
It
他想
was
起这些过往的事情。
painful.
当时非
Tivram.
常的痛苦，
The thunder was
Tivram.
piercing, making loud
那么
noises.
闪电
There
非
was
常的
also
这个
lightning.
非常的
Now
让
Krishna's
人
not
恐惧，
fearful or anything,
电闪雷鸣。
right, Sri Radhika?
那尽管那 Krishna 在这里感受到恐惧，那 Krishna 感受的是超人的恐惧。
Then, as the sun set, the forest was
接着
covered by darkness in every direction, and with
太阳
all the
太阳西下，
flooding, we could
整个
not
森林
distinguish
都
high
被
land from
黑暗
low.
四面八方的黑暗所
The
覆盖，
flood,
而且四处都
intense
是洪
rain.
水洪流，
The forest became flooded with
所以这
water.
个雨是非常
Constantly
的。
besieged by the powerful wind and
狂风
rain, we
暴雨。
lost our way.
那么
Amidst
在这
the
个狂风暴
flooding
雨中，我们
waters,
迷
we
了路，
simply held each other's
在这
hands,
些洪流之中，
and
我们只
in
能手
great
拉着手，
transcendental distress,
而且在这些超然的这些痛
we
苦之
wandered
中，
aimlessly about the forest.
我们在森林
Nice
里面四
paintings.
处的这个没有目标的
They
漫无目
continued
的
to
的
carry the
游荡，
firewood they secured for their
所以他
spiritual
们手中仍
master.
然抱着柴火，
Another
是
hardship on
给
top of the
灵性导
hardship.
师施点的柴火，
So here's a nice painting showing they're
克服
underneath
这
a
些苦
tree.
难。
Doesn't look like
这是
flooding
另外一
waters
幅图，
everywhere, but it certainly looks like wind. And it looks pretty intense.
那么图中似乎
So
没
what
看
did
到
they
洪流，
do?
但是可以
They
看到
decided
狂
to
风
just。take rest there in the forest in the
那他
midst
们
of
决
this
定什么
flooding
呢？他
everywhere
们就决
place.
定在森林里面
Our
过
guru
夜。
Sandipani Muni, understanding our
那么我们的
predicament,
Guru Sandipani
set out
Muni
after sunrise to
理解
search
到
for
我们
us.
的这样的处境，
His disciples
就在日
found
出之
us
后来去
in
寻找我们。
distress.
他的门徒
So
找到我
there's
们在
Sandipani Muni
在
looking
痛苦之中的
distressed.
我们。
And there's
那么在图
Sumuki in the
中 Sandipani
background
Muni
looking like guilty because she sent them out for
Sumuki
searching firewood.
那么
And there's the
Sumuki 当然就
firewood,
像个 yogi
and
一
there
样。
they are,
那图下是他们的捡的柴火，
Krishna
他
and
们守护在
Sudama.
那里。
And Sanipani Muni showed great affection. He,
那么 Sandipani
again, one
Muni
of the
展现
questions
出对
that
他
was
们的
being
这
asked
些极大的
earlier,
这种
you
怜
know,
爱之情。
Sri Radhika's question, nice question. In addition to paradharma, what about, you know, all of the other
那
needs
么在
of
Paramdharma
the persons who are practicing
至高
Krishna
的 Dharma
bhakti?
之外，
Well,
对于那些
he's like a
修习
father,
Krishna 知觉的人
and he has affection for them like a father. And when he sees them,
是怎
he
样的？
cries, seeing that
那
what
么
they
在这个
endured for
Sandipani
him.
Muni 对待
Here's
他
what he
对
says.
待他的门徒
My
就像父
children,
亲
you
一
have
样。
suffered so much for my sake
那他
and
的
for my wife's sake,
Sandipani Muni 就说到，
disregarding your own
我
comfort
亲爱的孩
because
子，
you are so
你为
dedicated
了
to
我
me,
和我的妻子的缘故，
though the body
忍
is
受这么
dear
多
to
痛
every
苦，
creature.
不顾你们的这个身体的
And then he
舒
gives
适，
them a
你们如此
benediction.
的奉献于我，
You
尽
boys
管
have
肢体其
dedicated
实
your
对每一个
lives
人都
to
来说都
fulfilling
分外
my
分外的
order.
亲爱。
You are the best of all living
这些
entities,
孩子
ignoring your
将
own
你们的
benefit,
生命献身于
you
我，
are devoted
为
to
了实现
me.
我的训令，
You are devoted
为
to
了实现
me.
我的训令，你们是
That's
所有
commentary.
生物体中最杰出的，
This
你们忽
indeed
略
is
了
the
自己的
duty of
舒适，
all true
完全的奉献
disciples,
于我。这实
to
际上是
repay the
真正的门
debt
徒的
to
真正
their
的职分，
spiritual master by offering
就是
him
去
with pure hearts their wealth and
通过
even
怀
their
着
very
纯粹的内
lives.
心，将财富和
This
他们
is,
甚至他们的
you
生
know,
命献给离
is
心导师，
instructions
以
in
偿还对
spiritual
离心导师的债
master-disciple
务。
relationship,
所以这是 Krishna 给
narrated
予
by
的这个
Krishna to
Guru 和门徒
Sudama,
之间的这样的一
but
个
he is
训诫。
also narrated for our benefit.
那么 Krishna 不光是为了
And
Sudama 的利益去讲述这些，也是为了我们的利益去
Commentary
讲述
says,
这些。
you have truly done service to Guru.
那
So
平时
now
会
he's
说
going to
到
give this like
桑迪帕尼
really
们
nice
在说
benediction.
你们真正的为
You
咕噜做出
boys
了真正的服务。
are the best of the twice
桑
born,
迪帕尼穆尼接
and
着
I am
说，你
satisfied
们这
with
些
you.
孩子
May
是
all your
二次出
desires
生
be
当中的
fulfilled,
俊杰，我非常的对你们
because
很
they're
满意。
spiritual desires, right? We don't want
愿
the
你们所
material
有的
ones
愿望
fulfilled,
都能够
but
实现。
spiritual
那当然，
desires.
这愿望是灵性的愿望。
And may the Vedic mantras you have
而
learned
且呢，
never
愿
lose their
你
meaning
们已
for
经学
you.
到的这些伟大 mantra， 永远不会在你们内心
How'd
中
you like to have
丧
that
失它们的意
benediction?
义，就永远能够铭
It
记这
doesn't
些
mean when you get
伟
such
大
a
mantra，
benediction, back to where's Raghava?
这
Is
并不
Raghava
意
here?
味着
Yeah. This thing, when you get such a benediction, it's not like, okay,
并
job's
不意味
done.
着说你得到祝福之后，
There's some odd,
就是
with such a
我没事儿。
benediction, like Masuchahar, whatever it is, bestowing bhakti
比如说
upon
像
the recipient, there's still sacrifice and service, and there's an
那
ongoing
么接
act
受
of
这样的祝福
surrendering.
之
Say it the
后，
other way.
还有很多的
Supposing
这就是苦
you
行和祭祀
surrender,
需要
then
去做，
become slack
献
in your
祭需要去做。
surrender.
那么假
Is
设
that
像
possible? It's possible.
你，
And when it happens, what happens?
这是一个
You get
这
covered
是一
over
个持
again.
续的过程。你想一下，如
Supposing
果
you
你
turn
松
your
懈了，你还
your
能说你在
face
记
away
住，
from the sun.
在完全在臣服的境
What do
界
you
吗？是
see?
不可能
You
的。
see shadow.
所以当你
Prabhupada's
看到太阳的
example.
时候，太阳背后是你的身后是什么呢？是
So
影子。
supposing this Krishna bhakti becomes weak
所以，那
for
当
whatever the
Krishna Bhakti
reason,
变得弱的时
complacency or
候，
time or something circumstance.
那么出于环境啊，
There's
或
an
者说
ongoing
自
process.
满呀，那这个光线就会变弱。那么，所以这是一
Endowed
个
with all
持
good
续的一个
qualities,
持续不断的一个过程。
Dvija Shrestha, may the Vedic
那么
mantras never
你们
lose their
拥有所有的
efficacy
好
for
的
you
品质，
in this life or the
愿
next.
这个伟大 mantra 不
Now
会
we're
丧
almost
失它
done
对你们的意义，
because the main
不
instructions
论是在
about
今生
guru-disciple
还是来
relationship
世。
have been given. Lord
那么
Krishna
所以 Krishna 在这
continued,
里给出了
we had
门徒
many
和学
similar
生，
experiences while
门徒
living
和
in
导
our
师之间的
spiritual
这样的
master's
训
home.
语。
Simply by the
那
grace of
Krishna
the
继续
spiritual
说，
master, a person can
我们在我
fulfill
们灵性导师的家
life's
中有许多相
purpose,
似的经历，仅
Swadharma
仅只
and
是
Paradharma
凭借我
both,
们灵性导师的
and
仁慈，
attain
一
eternal
个人就
peace.
实现了他生命的目
By
标，
the
并
mercy
且
of
真达
Guru,
了永恒的
one
这个
becomes
平静。
full of the greatest happiness.
凭借灵性导师的仁慈，一个人变得充满了
And Sudama
极
is
大
now
的
going to
快乐。
reply, what could I
接着
possibly
，Sudama
have failed to
就
achieve,
回答道
O Lord of Lords,
哦，神中之神啊，
O
宇宙的灵性
universal
导师啊，
teacher, since I was able to
我还有
personally
什
live
么
with you,
没能得到呢？
whose
因为我
every
已经得到
desire
了
is
您，
fulfilled
您的
at
这
the
样一
home
种，
of our
我和
spiritual
您亲
master.
自就是亲身住在一起，
Very
而您
affectionate
实现
relationship.
了所有人的愿望，
It is suitable to reside
所以这是非常有爱
with
的
the
这样的一
Guru
种
because
情
just by his will, all
住在灵
desires
性
of
导
the
师的这
devotee are
个
manifested
和
immediately.
灵性导师住在一起是非常恰当的，
That has
因为凭
happened.
借灵
And
性导
here's
师的
our
仁慈，
last
凭
slide.
借他的意愿，所有的这个
Sudama
奉献者的
says,
愿望都会得以实
O
现。
Almighty Lord, your body
Sudama 说
comprises
道，
the
哦，
absolute truth in the form
孔武
of
有
the
力的主啊，
Vedas and is the
您的身
source of
体
all auspicious goals
由
of
这个
life. That you
真理
took
组
up
成，
residence
以伟大
at the
经组
school
成。
of a spiritual master is
因
simply
此，
one
您
of your
是
pastimes
生命的吉
in
祥
which
目
you
标的
play
源
the
头。
role of a human being, as
那么
he's doing with
你
him
住
right
在灵
now.
性导师的这
You
个
know,
学
remember the
校里
good old
面，只是
days.
去上演一个你好
But
似
it's,
达
you
人
know,
的校
it's
时光而已。
instruction for us. He's setting an
这个
example,
是对
just
我
like
们的一
even for that
个
matter, going to
一个
school.
教
We
导，
heard
是
from
Krishna
Gopal
以身
Chimpo.
作则，
I don't need to go to
向
school
我们
because
树
I'm the
立的
source of all
树立
knowledge
的这样的
anyways.
一个榜样。因为
But it
为啥
wouldn't
根
be
本
a
不需
good
要去上
example,
学，
so I
像格
better
华
go to
昌普讲
school.
的，只是为了给世人树立一
Now,
个榜
who's a
样。
good teacher? Well, Vaishnav won't teach me because he knows that he'll know who I am.
那么他当时选老师的时候就
So
想到
go to Sandipani
Vaishnava
Muni
不能够
school.
成为
He
我老
knows
师，因为他
Brahman.
们知道我的地位。那么
And
所以他
he's an
选择
acclaimed
Sandipani
person, and he can
Muni，
teach me all the
Sandipani Muni 是
64
一个
Vedangas.
是一个纯洁的婆罗门，他是崇拜
It
主
says
希
like a
瓦。
little over 2 months. He graduated. Not bad,
那么
huh?
他们就上了2个月的学，然后就毕业了。
So just summary. The
所以我只是
one of
总
the
结
key
一下，
points is
有一个要点
what
就是
pleases Krishna. And
究竟
Krishna
什
is
么
being
取悦
very
Krishna，
explicit. What pleases
而
him
Krishna
more than this and that, the other thing, and
非
the
常
other
的仁
thing.
慈
All
那
of
什
those
么
things are prescribed by him.
Krishna 说了
But what pleases him the
取悦他
most
的
is
事情有哪些，
service
但
to
他说
Guru.
最取悦他
And the
的
service to
就是对
Guru,
顾的
where
服
there's
务，
hardship, is
他
not
对顾
hardship.
的顾的服务，
When there's
无论
opulence, is not opulence.
有怎样的艰
Because
险，
there's
究竟有没有财
the,
富还
the,
是没有
the
财富，
important
他都
thing
要
for
去
such
服
a
务顾主。
worshiper is the object, the Lord
Anyway,
himself. It's not the
因为
what the
听导
Lord
师
gives to us.
是
It's
一个人
the opportunity to
应当
render
去崇拜的
service.
对
The,
象。
the focus goes to, same as with the
那么
kings,
重点
there's a process, there's a practice, and there's an
那么有
internal
这样一个程
absorption
序，丰富的程序，
in
以及有内在的这种
the
专注，
spirit of service.
还有
And
服务的
that's
这
the
种
greatest
这种
happiness.
精神，
That's the greatest
而这个
happiness.
这是快乐的来
It's
源，
such a
极
happiness,
大的狂喜，
as
是
Krishna
如
says
此
to
的
the
快乐。
gopis,
那就
I
像 Krishna
cannot
对 Gopi 们所
repay
说
you.
的
You're going to be happy with, you have to
，Krishna
be
说
happy
无
with
法
your
去
happiness.
无法去回报你们，你
Your
们必
love
须
for me is
满足于你们对我做的
your
关爱服
payment,
务，
repayment.
而
Because he
这个
wants
你
to
们对我的
reciprocate,
爱，这
just
就
like
是对你们对
we
我的
want
爱
to
的最
take,
好的
he
这个
wanted
回
to,
报。
Sudama wanted to take something for his guru, but
那
Krishna,
Sudama 想要
his Lord and Master, he wanted to do that.
给他的主
So
人
we
一些
also,
东西，
what is it that we have that's meaningful?
那么
Because
对我们来
Krishna
说也
is
是如此。
everything.
对于我们来说，
And who
究
are
竟
we?
什么是最重要的？如果 Krishna 是一切的一切的话，我们是谁？我们又是谁呢？
The opportunity to, so we have, by the grace of our
因为我们
founder Acharya, we have
凭借我们的创办
we
人
have a
导师的仁
temple,
慈，
we have
我们有
books,
个
and we
庙
have
宇，
kirtans,
我
we
们有
have
书籍，我们有
stuff that
kirtan，
he didn't have when he came, but he,
我
it
们有
became
他
manifest
当
over
时来
time,
到美国
etc., etc.
所没有的这一切，
We have so much facility
我们有这么多的便利条
to
件，
achieve the purpose of life,
为了真达
and
生命的终极目
receiving
标，
that mercy and offering that mercy
去接受
back in loving
这样的
in
仁
the
慈，
form of loving
并
service.
且以这种爱心服务将这种的仁慈回馈。
Those who are positively spoken, those who are feeling
那么从
that,
正面来说，那些感觉
they're
非常糟
enlivened.
糕。
And as Krishna said to the kings, you'll get newer, refreshed
就像
realization
Krishna 当时
as
给
time
这些国王
passes
囚禁的国王的祝福一样，
by
说到
that
你们
mood
会
of
随着时
service.
间的推移，
And the
有着
opposite can
日
also be
新
said.
月异
If
的
that goes stale, or if submission becomes weakened again,
但是如
then,
果说你
you
们
know,
的臣服
the
变
same
得
enthusiasm and the
变得
same
弱化了，
realizations,
那么
it
热情
things will
和领
become
悟
mechanical. We don't want
就会
that.
变
We know
得
what that is.
变得暗
We don't
淡，
want
一切都会
that.
变得机械。我们并
So
不
what
想
to
要
do
这
when
样的生活，
that starts to happen?
所以我们该怎
Pick
么
up
做呢？
Srimad Bhagavatam and regularly engage yourself in a
So you-
heartfelt way
要
to receive its message
规律的去
and
阅读
appreciate these
圣典
great
国家晚
souls
谈，
because,
以
and
一
the
种用心的
lessons that
方
are
式去
given.
接受着
That's
其
why
中的
the
知识，
Bhagavatam
接
was
受其
written,
中的教诲。
wasn't it?
这就是
The
为什么
Bhagavatam
国
was
家晚
written
谈
to
写
give
成的目的。
the
国
people
家晚
of
谈写成的
the
目
age
的
of
在于
Kali
去给予人们
the,
卡利年代的人们，
the real happiness that the soul is
给
hankering
他们
for.
真正的
Without
真
it,
正的快乐，真正灵魂所
it's,
渴望的
it's
快乐。
dry.
如果没有它
Even
的
if,
话，
if
生命就会变
virtuous
得干枯。
activities are done, the virtue that's
尽
attained
管
by
你这
virtuous
个虔诚活
activity
动可能
without
能够去
Krishna
做的，
Bhakti will be used for sense
但是如果
gratification.
没有 Krishna 的
It's
人
just a very
，Krishna
simple
Bhakti
math
的话，
formula.
你所有的虔
If
诚
the
活动
heart
就会
is
用
not
来去
pure,
感
that's
官
what's
享
going
乐。
to happen.
如果内心不纯粹的话，这就会发生。
You know that one? You all know that one. The fruit of piety plus
那么
a heart
虔
that's
诚活动
impure
的结果
equals
加上内心
pride.
不纯粹，就会产生
Always.
骄傲，就等于骄傲。 总是这样。
indulging in, that's in the language of light of the Bhagavad, it's the extravagant. They do something to get something and then they become the enjoyer of that something.
人们做一些
That's
事
not
情，为了得
happiness.
到一些事情，他们就成为这个果实的
But
享
people
受者。
take it as
这不是真
happiness
正
if
的
they
快
don't
乐。
have transcendental knowledge.
是，如果
And
没
we
有
could
传
also
知识，
fall
会
in
认
the
为
same
这个
rut
是快乐。
easily. It's like 1, 2, 3. But don't do
但
that.
是我们会看到这样的快乐
What's
是
the
很容易
option?
的去腐烂的。
Hear carefully, nice examples, and in the purifying words of the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the company of devotees by our very process that we're doing right now,
这些很好的典范，
the cleansing, the seeing the distinction between this and that becomes possible, and you go for
那么
transcendence, being inspired by it.
辨别力
Now, what
存在的时
happens,
候，
generally speaking, is after some
去
time,
走向超然。
so what do
那么过一段
how do we
时
go
间会
back
发
up
生什么
again?
呢？
So we continue our
人的理
sangha,
性可能
we
会
continue
下
the
滑，
reading
然后
and
再
continue the applying.
然后
And
再继续
exactly
去
what
阅读，
Krishna
再
said
让
to
它
the
回
kings,
升。
you practice.
那就
You
是 Krishna
hear, you
给
understand,
国
you
王们说的，
practice.
你们需要去
And
修
then
习。
come to remembrance.
那休息之后才
And
会
when
得
there's
到这样的
continuous
意念，
remembrance,
很长的
then
意念。
comes
那然后
pure
很长
devotional
的意
service.
念呢，会带来纯粹的奉爱服务。
So wherever you are in that spectrum of 5, you keep up. And if you don't
无论你在
understand,
这
go
个阶
back
段
and
中
hear
的
it
哪个阶
again. If
段，
you don't understand, go
那
back and hear
么
it again.
继续
Then
继
you
续
then
往
you
前
understand
走。
it, then you
如果
forget
你
it.
读不
Then
懂，
you go
就
back
是
and hear
再
it again.
再次去阅读，
So
读不
just
懂
keep
再次去读。如果你忘记
with
了，
the
就再次去阅读。
faithfully with the
阅读圣
process
典博加瓦
in
坛，
the right association from the right
以
sources,
这种信心坚
and
定的
that
去遵循
cleansing
这
of
样
the
的程
heart
序，
and
并且
remembrance
在
of our
好的灵
relationship
当
with
中
Krishna becomes
去
our
遵
life.
循。那么在这
That's how it
个
works. It
净
works.
化我们的内心，恢复我们与
It
至尊
really
主的
works.
关系，就是我们的整个
Complacency
程
doesn't
序。
work.
这一切是真正的奏效的，但是如果你自满的话，就不会奏效。自满是不会带来任何
Discussion.
效果的。
Look at, it's already 5 minutes after 8. I've gone for an hour and 35 minutes and you didn't stop me. So we'll
现在我
take a
已经
little
讲
bit
了
of
一
time
个
for
半小时
discussion.
了，那你们没有阻止我。那么我们现在留下几点时间用于讨论和问答
Hare
环
Krishna
节。
Guru Maharaj. It was very beautiful class and very deep realizations
那么你的
and
这堂
lessons
课
we
非常的
learned
深，
today.
我们学到
I
了
have a doubt
很深奥
why
的这样的一个教诲。
Madhumangal end up in
我很好奇
Yamaloka.
马杜芒高
I
为什
thought
么
only
会在
sinful go
亚马
there.
隆卡那里终结他的性命？
I couldn't follow.
Madhumangal,
我不太
Madhumangal.
明白
why
你
did
说的
he
意
go
思。
to Yamaloka?
Why did he go to Europe?
Yamaloka. Yam-
马杜芒高为什么会去亚马楼卡？这个奉献者的问题。
Krishna went to Yamaloka to bring him back, right?
因为
Yeah.
Krishna
I
去
was
到亚
wondering
马楼卡
why
把
he
马杜
is in
芒高带
Yamaloka
回
in first place.
That's
我
a
想
good
知道
question.
为什么他会去 Yamaraj 的居所呢？这
He's
个问
not
题很好。
sinful, so why did he go there? That's the
Right.
question.
他
Yeah.
并不罪恶，为什么他会到
I
这
thought
个
maybe in
亚马楼
scripture
卡？
some reasoning.
Do you have something?
你对此有什么
Srila
回答吗？
Prabhupada say not in this context, but in general that Yamaraj is the lord of death. So just the death category, not just hellish planets. That's a different arena.
Nice. That's a nice answer.
有
She's
个奉
she's
献者就说
smiling. Even
他
behind
好
her
像另外一
mask,
个
she's
场合说过，
smiling.
这个 Yamaraj 只不
In the back,
过是
Nandimukhi.
就是通常来说这是死亡意义的这个代表，并不说是
That's a nice answer.
已经
Thank
是
you.
这个地狱的代表。
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. I have two reflections. The first is I feel that
就是
the wife of Sudama,
那么就是
Sumukhi.
Sudama 的
Sushila,
妻子
The wife of Sudama is
Sudama.
Sushila. Okay.
Sudama 的妻子
she
Sushila，
played an important role in
她扮演了一个非常重要的角色，
Sudama's devotion and taking
Yes.
shelter of
Yes.
Yes,
Krishna.
it looked otherwise, but that's what was going on.
这
And
个放爱之情，让她去见
specifically
Krishna，
after
尤其是在
her conversation with Sudama, Sudama
在她与
elevated
Sudama 的对
from
话
a
之后，
position of just being satisfied
那么
and being different to his
但是
situation
Sudama
and
其实在对话
thinking
中表现出
about
他就想
Krishna
安住这
from
一
a
切，
distance
只是想
to a
就
different
是
level,
保持
a
距离
level
去想
where
Krishna。
he would actively approaching Krishna
Yes.
and
那么他
and
最后经过这一番之后，他
ask
决定要去主动的去接近
express
Krishna，
his mind and heart in some way.
去向 Krishna
Yes.
吐露心
And
声。
I think
我想
in a context of guru-disciple
在
relationship,
这个 guru
this
和
is
门徒的关系中，
there is a difference between the disciple just serving the spiritual master,
那么有这样的区别，
just serving
有的
his
有的风
mission
有的
in
门徒只是
in
去服务他的理性导师，去
in
实
separation
现他
or
guru
from a
的
distance,
这个以分离之情去
then
服务理性导师，
actively approaching the
还有一种
spiritual master and
就是非常积极的去接近理性导师，
offering his submission and prayers
去
and
向他呈现他的这种
begging
臣服
for
顺服，
blessings and mercy.
并且祈求理性导师的祝福。
Nice comparison. Very, very, very well done.
Yes, it takes for a different level of trust and
那么这个需要更深的这样的一种信任在里面。
acceptance of oneself, and also yes, and thank you. The second reflection is
那么这是我想
I
分享的。
noticed
那第
the
二
word
个我想分享的是，
which was translated as painful in
其中有个词被
in
翻译
in
成
the
这个痛苦
pastime of Sudama and Krishna in their
Sudama
get
和
lost in
Krishna
the
的这个
forest.
Tivra.
It's Tivra.
在森
I
林
remember
中，
seeing that word some place. It was used to describe
这
bhakti.
个逍遥时光中
Tivra
使用这样的
Bhakti
一个词。
Yogena. Tivra means, in that case, it means strong or intense or powerful.
Okay.
那么那个词是有不一样的意思。
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. So, Guru Maharaj, you said, you mentioned like
那么好，
Krishna
你刚
and
刚
Lord
讲到
Balram
Krishna
went to Sandipani Muni because he was not a
和
Vaishnava,
Sudama 去
so
到
he doesn't
Sandipani
know
Muni 那里。
about Krishna's position.
That's what is written in Gopal Champu. Yes.
因为
Similarly, I mean,
桑迪帕尼穆尼因为他
the
不是
same
个
thing
Vaishnava，
applies
所以
to kind of
他没有认出
in
这样的
Vrindavan,
崇高的地
all
位。
the devotees, all the Vrajwas,
在
eternal,
温达温的所有的
eternal
Brahmana 的居民
devotees of
认不
Krishna,
出 Krishna，
and Yogmaya
他们
works
尽管
there.
是 Krishna 的奉献者，
So
但
to
Yoga
kind of
Maya 是这样
cover
运作的，
Yeah.
让
So
他们认不
why
出
why
Krishna
is
的
it
崇高
not
地
the
位。
same case
那
here?
么
Why
为什
Krishna
么
doesn't use a Yog Maya for
为什
that
么
purpose?
Krishna 不
That's the
用 Yoga
first
Maya
question.
去覆
Why,
盖
your
他的
question is, why
Vaishnava？
didn't he go to Yogamaya school?
No, my question is why didn't Yog Maya cover? I mean,
问题是什么呢？
if he had chosen a Vaishnava
我的
guru,
问题是为什么 Krishna 不选一
Yog
个
Maya could
Vaishnava
have
guru，然后
covered
有
the
Yoga Maya，
Vaishnava
然后
guru
忘记他
about
的知根
his
者地位？
real position, and then he could have chosen a Vaishnava guru.
You're very intelligent.
那么
And
你真
Krishna
的
is
太
more
聪明了，
intelligent.
比 Krishna
That's
还
what
聪明
I'm
一点。
asking.
There must be other reasons besides that one reason.
那么
That
除
was
了
to
这
give
个
the
理由
because
之外，
because
肯定
listen.
还有别的理由。
Here's the other another reason at least.
你仔细去听，有另外一个理
The
由。
mother of Sandipani Muni and the two children of Sandipani Muni were
以及
intimately
Sandipani Muni
associated
的
with
两个
Krishna
孩
in
子
his pastimes
都
in
是 Krishna 的
Vrindavan.
亲密的这个在文达
So he
的
wanted
亲
to
密
give
的
his
朋友。
mercy to Sandipani Muni, having
所
received
以
the
Krishna 想把他
association
的
of
仁
his mother
慈
and two
给到
children.
Sandipani Muni，就是通过这个 Sandipani Muni 与这两个他的
The
一双
other
儿女的
other
联
question
谊
is
，Krishna 想要给他更多的仁慈。
when even though Sandipani Muni was not a
那么还有
Vaishnava,
一个问题就是，
him,
即便 Sandipani
he
Muni 他
and
不是
his
Vaishnava，
wife has deep
他
affection
和
for
他的妻
Krishna.
子
They did.
对 Krishna 有
So
着这
could
么
that
深厚
make
的爱，
them a
They
Vaishnava? And
became benedicted by
那些让他们
becoming part of his school.
成为 Vaishnava。
so basically, they
Krishna gave his association so he could become a pure
所以 Krishna
Vaishnava.
给予他们他的这个
Oh,
Krishna 的
yeah.
联谊，所以
That's
好让
nice.
他们能够
Yeah, that's
成为
nice.
纯粹的
That's
Vaishnava。
nice. right in front of you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare
I
Krishna, Guru
was
Maharaj.
I was wondering, so we're
我
seeing
正在想，
how Sudama, or how
Sudama.
Sudama's wife
苏达玛的妻子
said that it's not proper to ask the Lord for
说到
other than devotion.
问主要这个除了奉爱之外，要
So
别的东
I
西
mean,
是不恰当
obviously
的。
we have many different kinds of
所以很
desires,
显然，
and the ones that are like obvious, that are very obviously
不
material,
同的这个
can,
愿望，
we can toss those away.
Well, if you
其
renounce
中
like they
那
are,
些
then you
物质的
can't.
愿望，我们就可以把它们丢掉。那古鲁马哈的回答是说，如果你能够像苏
That
达
was
玛那样
their
的这样的气
their
质，可以
the
这么做。
training and their disposition.
那么这是他
That
们的
doesn't
心态
mean
和他们的
somebody's
这
in
个
in a penalty
Sudama
box if they
他们
have
的
material
心态。
desire. That would pretty much rule everybody out from devotional service.
那不是说我们
So
现在
they're
这
an
样一个奉献者
exceptional
的家庭
case.
中的这个居士
That's
家
their
庭中的
that's
人，说他
their
们
heart's disposition and that's
对
their
对这个物质
value
的东西都不
system.
感兴趣，那么这样
We
反而
don't
会
go
阻
to
碍
the
他
Lord for
他的家
anything
庭成员
other than
有个
devotion.
奉爱福的很好的环境。
Does that answer your question?
I get a follow-up question to that.
Okay.
那还有一
So
个问题，
should we, with our desires, and should we be putting should we be putting those giving those to Krishna? Like, should we also like only go for the sake of devotion to Krishna, or should we, or if we have certain desires, should we ask him or put it in front of him?
我们是不是应当只是为了
What's
取
your
悦 Krishna，
understanding?
我们别的愿望是不是应当
My understanding is,
那么
I
我的理解是什
Be
么？我的理
honest.
解是，
you put it.
That's the right understanding. Krishna, this is my
就是要
situation,
对自己臣服，对自己
I
要
know,
诚实。Krishna 知
and I'm
道我
not
的
there
情
yet.
形，我知道我还没有达到那样
That's my
契约的境界，
situation.
这是我现在的这个状况。
All the way in the back, oh, there's several hands.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. Just by hearing how poor is Sudama, the veins popping up,
去聆听到苏达玛是如此的瘦弱，
it,
青春暴露，
it's very difficult to hear
真的
itself.
太难，
How
我真
about
的不忍听下去。
those people who are around? I mean, the other Vaishnavas,
那么就是那
they
这
couldn't
周围的
help,
外甥
or
们，
was there a refusal?
You heard that. Krishna said, even if offered, he would refuse.
Yeah, so,
那么他们难道没有
so
就是
okay.
Next.
去帮助他们？那么他说你已经听到了 Krishna 说，
Guru
即便
Maharaj,
是
on the
苏达玛
point
其实
of
他
the
也
two
会拒绝的。
different types of renunciation, one stemming out of
Guru Maharaj,
indifference and the other stemming out of aversion or being inimical to
有
sense
一种是中立
gratification.
的漠然的状态。
We also
还
hear
有一种是他厌
that
恶感官
aversion is the flip side of attachment. Now, I understand Jada Bharat and Sudama Brahmana, the two examples you gave, are beyond that. But
Yes.
in general, is there a hierarchy to these two types of renunciation in that the one stemming out of indifference is superior to
It
feeling?
depends on one's nature. That Krishna addresses this. There are some persons like me
但是
who are not averse,
Krishna
but
说到，
they accept the position
那么有些人像我
for
一
you
样，
know
他们
for
并不是
teaching
厌
others,
离这个财
and
富。
some persons
是
accept
像
the
我一样
position
树立一个
because
榜
that's the
样，
means of purification.
教育他
Swadharma,
人。
we had a nice discussion here, right in this temple room,
那么关于
with
Swadharma， 我们在这个庙
Gopal
里面
Hari, and you
这样
can
的很多的
ask him
讨
about
论。
it later because he's very keen on this topic. Swadharma is meant for
Swadharma
purification of the person who
是
follows
为了
it.
去
Now, there's
净化那些
persons that
追随
don't follow
Swadharma 的
it,
人。
they're adharmic, and that's something else. But those who follow it,
还有一些人不遵
it's
循
acceptance
Swadharma。
of a regulation in order to become free from the attraction for that
Swadharma
which
是
is being regulated. So
去遵循这样
both
的
have their
一
place.
种生活方式。
Now,
你的这
your
种
question
愿望就能够
specifically
得到
is,
规律。
is there a hierarchy? Is there a better form of renunciation?
这个气绝这两种之间
And
存
my
在的高
answer
低
is
之分
it
哪个更好？
depends on one's position. If one has,
我想说就是要
you
看
know,
一个
back
人
to
的
his
这个处
question,
境，
you know, supposing
就像那个人提
one
的
should
问
be
题，
honest
假设
with
就是说一个人
oneself.
应当是要对自己诚实的，对自己
And,
非
you
常
know,
坦
to be
诚。
honest with oneself is there are
那对一个人
material,
坦诚，就是
whatever you
知
want
道
to
自
use the
己
word,
内心
needs,
中
wants, you know,
有一些
hankerings,
物质的需求
attractions.
啊，或者说
Otherwise, we
渴望
wouldn't
啊、
be in the
吸
material
引啊
world. So
等等。
there's some of that going on.
那否则我
Now,
们就不会在乎
that
的是
in my
这个
acknowledgement, by
肯定有些
by
东西。
acknowledging
那
that,
么
now
我
what do
知
I
道
do?
这些东西的存在，
Be honest.
那我现在该怎么做呢？那就是要对自己很
And be
坦诚。
honest doesn't mean indulge. Be honest means you follow
坦
Swadharma.
诚并不意味着我去放纵自己
Find
的
out
权
what
利，
the duty is for someone who has
而是去
this attraction or that attraction. And then there's, according to one's
去找到
capacity,
这
one can go
个
higher, one can go higher.
他
Like,
所
for
需要
example,
去履行的
just
这些职分，
Prabhupada
并且去
discussing,
找出一个
you know, the
方法
tendency
和
for
逐
eating
渐
meat
提升
has
自
its
己。
regulation. Doesn't mean, okay, so now you just follow the regulation for eating meat and everything's fine. There's
那那些
consequences
吃
for
肉
that.
的，他们
Karmic consequences.
每
Karmic
天只是
consequences
这样
for
说，这样
eating
就没问
meat,
题。
even when under regulation of the
不是说他
Vedas.
们通过规律的这样
And I
吃肉的
couldn't
方式就
follow
过
it exactly, but he was saying that there's regulation for
我不记得
alcohol.
他具体是怎么说的。那么就是
You
有
offer to a certain
我忘了这
deva
后面是怎
and
么
you know,
讲的，
then
就说
it's
到
like it's a regulation.
甚至就是
Doesn't mean,
连
okay,
饮酒其实
I want to be honest with
都
myself.
有
I
这
have
样的
this
这种规范。
worldly attraction, so let me indulge in alcohol in a
这
regulated
并
way.
不是说我
No,
们通过
so that
就是以一
therefore,
种规
this
范的方式来放纵
sarvadharmam
自己。
parityaja mamekam sharanam braja
那么最终 Krishna 给
is
出的
there.
是
So
说
those
放弃一
those
些
other
宗教去皈依
dharmas,
我。所以那些 dharma 们就是世俗的职分，
they're
或者说
subordinate.
世俗这种规律的这些
So
dharma，
then there's the
是有
honesty.
是有
Supposing
这个
I'm not
边
there
界的。
yet. I'm not in the mam ekam sharanam. I'm not there yet. I
那么
move
假设我
towards it
现在没有达
with
到完
faith.
全的这个，
And then
臣服
so
状态，
the acceptance is according to one's
那么需要，
actual position, honest position, introspective,
那么一个人应
a
当
word that
根
we've
据
been
自己
using,
的这样的
Prabhupada's
真实
been
的情
using,
况，
introspective
去真
about
实
what
地
my
接
real
受。
situation is. And let me, there's a nice verse
那
amongst
么像爬爬所说的，就是我要清楚的知道我自己
999 other
现在的
nice
处境。
verses in the Bhagavatam. In Uddhava Gita, where Krishna
在国
says,
家瓦坛当
for
中，
someone who is in that
乌达瓦
situation,
Gita 当
a
中
Vaishnava that's
就
in
说
that
到，
situation, they recognize
一个
there's going to
处
be
在这种情
consequences
况下
for
的
this worldly
这个
attraction I have.
Vaishnava 应当明
And
白
I
说，我
wish
现在
for
的
that
这些
worldly
对
attraction to go away.
物质的这
But
种
while
吸
I
引
have
呢，
it,
最终会导致相应
I'm
的结
I'm
果。
I'm engaging in these worldly activities, knowing there's
那我从事这
consequences,
些，
regretting
我
my
从事这些感
attraction,
官享乐，确实知
accepting the
道它背后会
consequences,
带来不好
and
的结果。
hankering for that stage of my devotional life where
那
my
我
heart
就
will
是
be
继续
sufficiently pure.
去
I
现在还
won't
在
have
从
that
事这些
attraction
世俗的东
anymore.
西，但我知道背后的后果。
That's
同
Krishna's
时呢，我又渴望
recommendation.
我要去摆脱这些，
So your question
得
was,
到
is
一
there a
种摆脱这
hierarchy?
些这
And it
个不想
depends
要的
on
东
what
西。
one's situation is.
所以你
If
想
it's
问的是
really
这个
what
气
one's
绝间有没有存
situation
在
is,
高低？
that's better.
那我想说是要
If
看一
it
个人
isn't
真实
what
的
one's
处境是什么。
situation is, one should be honest.
那如果说
Okay.
气绝是一个人的这个一个真正的处境的话，那是一回事。
Ramraj, we
那
had
一
an
个人应当
online
对自
question
己
in the
究竟
morning
在
that
哪
we
里
were sort of
要
postponing. Can we ask now? Or
很
Okay, it's one question online, and then I think we'll wrap it up. It's already 8:23.
Marsh, this is from Rupa Vilas Prabhu from today morning's Bhagavatam class.
那么有一个来自线上的问题，
Rasanda thought that he'd get Shiva points.
Come this way, because the amplification system is needing you to be closer. Now speak.
When Jarasandha thought that by offering human sacrifice he'd please Lord Shiva, was that just his
这个
misconception,
Jarasandha 认为
or would Lord Shiva really be pleased by the human sacrifice?
Of course
第二
not.
桑纳认为他去献活人祭能够取悦希望，但是他是误解了，他不知道什么是
There's
真
no
正取悦
such
主希
Vedic
望
thing.
是的
It's his invention.
因为伟达经
Srila
中没有提出这样的
Prabhupada
这样的这个献活人祭取悦主